Jasmine Williams never imagined that accepting a last-minute seat change would ignite a chain of events that would threaten her entire career, reputation, and safety. As the white businessman's spit landed on her cheek and his words, "Know your place," echoed through the cabin, she felt the eyes of every passenger burning into her skin. The flight attendant's unexpected defense silenced the plane, but nobody could have predicted that this moment would lead to a nationwide scandal, multiple death threats, and a courtroom battle that would change airline policies forever. What happens when standing your ground at 30,000 feet forces you to fight for your dignity back on Earth? Before we dive into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you believe in standing up for justice, hit that like and subscribe button to stay updated on more powerful true stories of courage in the face of discrimination. Jasmine Williams clutched her boarding pass for Flight 2267 to Seattle, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. After 15 years of fighting through systemic barriers, endless microaggressions, and outright discrimination, she was finally heading to an interview that could change everything. Horizon Aerospace, one of the industry's most prestigious companies, had specifically sought her out for a senior engineering position that had never before been held by a black woman. The terminal buzzed with the usual airport energy as Jasmine wheeled her carry-on toward the gate. Her mind drifted to the countless obstacles she'd overcome just to reach this point. The high school guidance counselor who suggested she try nursing instead of engineering because math might be too difficult. The college professor who seemed surprised whenever she aced his exams. The previous job interviews where she'd been told she was overqualified or not quite the right fit for our culture. Now boarding Flight 2267 to Seattle, starting with our premium passengers and those needing special assistance, the gate agent announced, snapping Jasmine back to the present. As she stepped forward to scan her boarding pass, the machine beeped cheerfully. The gate agent looked up with genuine warmth. "Ms. Williams, you've been upgraded to business class today. Thank you for your loyalty as a platinum member." Jasmine couldn't suppress her smile. Perhaps this was an omen that things were finally turning in her favor. She made her way down the jet bridge, mentally rehearsing her presentation for tomorrow's interview. Her research on advanced composite materials could revolutionize aircraft manufacturing, making planes lighter, stronger, and more fuel-efficient. The flight attendant at the door, whose name tag read Maya Chen, greeted her with a professional smile. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Williams. You're in seat 3A, window seat on your left." Business class felt like a sanctuary. Jasmine settled into her spacious seat, stowed her portfolio in the overhead bin, and accepted a pre-departure orange juice. For once, she didn't have to squeeze between other passengers or feel self-conscious about taking up space. Here, she was treated like she belonged. As the remaining passengers boarded, Jasmine pulled out her grandfather's worn silver wings pin. Harold Williams had been one of the famed Tuskegee Airmen, breaking barriers in the sky when much of America still enforced segregation on the ground. "The sky doesn't care about your color, Jazzy," he used to tell her, "only how well you understand its language." She always carried his pin for important occasions, a reminder that she came from a lineage of pioneers. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, welcoming passengers and announcing a flight time of 3 hours and 20 minutes to Seattle. Just as the safety demonstration began, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a new email. She glanced down, expecting a last-minute document request from Horizon's HR department. Instead, she nearly dropped her phone in surprise. The message was from Elizabeth Carter, CEO of Horizon Aerospace herself. "Ms. Williams, I've personally reviewed your research and am deeply impressed. Your approach to composite materials is exactly the innovative thinking Horizon needs to maintain our competitive edge. I've rearranged my schedule to join your interview tomorrow. Looking forward to discussing how we can bring your vision to life. Safe travels." Jasmine read the message 3 times, hardly daring to believe it. The CEO herself. This wasn't just a courtesy interview or diversity initiative. They genuinely valued her work. The flight took off smoothly, climbing steadily into the clear, blue sky. Jasmine ordered a sparkling water and opened her laptop to review her presentation one last time. Everything had to be perfect. This wasn't just about her career. It was about opening doors for countless other black women in aerospace. About 45 minutes into the flight, the plane hit unexpected turbulence. The aircraft shuddered and dipped sharply, causing drinks to spill and overhead bins to rattle ominously. Jasmine gripped her armrests, trying to keep her breathing steady. The fasten seatbelt sign pinged on immediately, and Maya moved efficiently through the cabin, checking on passengers and securing loose items. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice came through, slightly tense. "We've hit some unexpected, rough air. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, please be seated." For nearly 20 minutes, the plane bucked and jolted through the turbulent air mass. Finally, the ride smoothed out, but another announcement followed. "Folks, this is your captain speaking. As a precautionary measure after that turbulence, we're going to make a brief stop in Denver for a standard safety check. We don't anticipate any issues, but safety is our top priority. We should be on the ground in Denver in about 30 minutes, and we'll keep you updated about our departure time to Seattle after the inspection." A collective groan rose from the cabin. Jasmine checked her watch anxiously. Even a short delay could make her evening tight, but she'd still have plenty of time before tomorrow's interview. She returned to reading the CEO's email, allowing herself to feel a moment of pride. Her grandfather's voice seemed to whisper in her ear, "You're breaking new sky, Jazzy." She was so absorbed in the moment that she didn't notice the tall figure looming in the aisle beside her until a sharp voice broke her concentration. "Excuse me, but you're going to need to move." Jasmine looked up to see a well-dressed white man in his 50s, his expression a mixture of impatience and entitlement. His expensive suit and designer watch screamed corporate success, but his tone held something unmistakable that Jasmine had encountered too many times before. "I'm sorry," she replied, unsure if she'd misheard. "My son and I were separated during the last-minute seat assignments," he said, gesturing back toward the economy section. "He's back there in 23C, and I need you to trade so we can sit together." Not a request, a command. Jasmine noticed a teenage boy hovering awkwardly behind the man, looking mortified. Before she could respond, the man added, "I'm Curtis Whitfield, Executive VP at Meridian Capital. I'm sure the airline wouldn't have put someone like you in business class if they weren't overbooked elsewhere." The implication hung in the air between them, as clear as if he'd shouted it. "Someone like you." Jasmine took a deep breath, maintaining her composure despite the familiar sting of those words. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitfield, but I'm not going to move. This is my assigned seat, and I was upgraded because of my status with the airline." Curtis. Whitfield's face hardened, his jaw clenching visibly as he processed her refusal. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes, the unmistakable look of a man unaccustomed to hearing the word no, especially from a black woman. "Perhaps you misunderstood me," he said, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "My son is 16. It's his first time flying alone, and we need to sit together." The teenager behind him, presumably Trevor, shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, it's fine, really. I don't mind sitting." "Be quiet, Trevor," Curtis snapped without turning around. "I'm handling this." Jasmine noticed other passengers beginning to watch the interaction. A woman across the aisle subtly held up her phone, camera lens pointed in their direction. The confrontation was being recorded. "Sir," Jasmine said firmly, "I understand your concern, but I have an important business meeting in Seattle that I'm preparing for. I was assigned this seat and I'm not obligated to give it up." Curtis's nostrils flared. "Do you have any idea who I am?" His voice rose sharply, drawing more attention. "I spend over $50,000 a year flying with this airline. I can't imagine how you ended up in business class, but it was clearly a mistake. Someone must have felt sorry for you. Have you ever been in a situation where a person's true character is revealed in a moment of pressure? What would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Comment, stand firm if you believe she should hold her ground, or move seats if you think she should avoid conflict. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed discrimination in public spaces, and subscribe to join our community that believes in dignity for all." By now, several passengers had their phones out, recording the escalating situation. Trevor looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. "Sir, I earned my seat here just like anyone else, Jasmine stated calmly, though her heart pounded in her chest. If sitting with your son is so important, perhaps you should ask the flight attendant if you can be moved to economy to sit with him. The suggestion that he should move to economy rather than her seemed to push Curtis over an edge. His face flushed crimson. This is ridiculous. I've never been treated so disrespectfully. Where is a flight attendant? Someone needs to sort this out immediately. As if on cue, Maya Chen appeared beside them, her professional demeanor firmly in place despite the tension. Is there an issue I can help with? She asked, looking between Jasmine and Curtis. Before Jasmine could speak, Curtis launched into his demands. Yes, there absolutely is. My son and I need to sit together, and this woman is refusing to accommodate us. I need you to make her move to the seat in economy and bring my son up here. Maya turned to Jasmine. Ma'am, is this your assigned seat? Yes, it is, Jasmine replied. I was upgraded due to my platinum status. Maya nodded and turned back to Curtis. Sir, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but we cannot require another passenger to give up their assigned seat. Ms. Williams is correctly seated according to her boarding pass. Curtis's expression darkened further. Oh, I see what's happening. Here, you two are playing the race card, aren't you? This is reverse discrimination. His voice grew loud enough for the entire business class section to hear. I want to speak to a real manager, not some diversity hire flight attendant. Trevor looked horrified. Dad, please stop. This is embarrassing. Shut up, Trevor, Curtis hissed. You need to learn how the world really works. Sometimes you have to put people in their place. The aisle was now completely blocked as Curtis stood his ground, creating a scene that was rapidly spiraling out of control. A line of passengers trying to reach the lavatory had formed behind him. Maya remained unflappable. Sir, I am the lead flight attendant on this flight. I must ask you to return to your assigned seat as we're preparing for our descent into Denver. You're creating a safety hazard by blocking the aisle. I'm not moving until this situation is resolved properly, Curtis insisted, crossing his arms. I spend too much money with this airline to be treated this way. Maya's voice took on an edge of steel beneath her professional tone. Sir, airline policy is very clear. No passenger can be forced to give up their assigned seat for another passenger's convenience. If you'd like to sit with your son, we can see if there are 2 adjacent seats available elsewhere on the aircraft after we land in Denver. This is absurd. Curtis's voice rose to nearly a shout. Do you know how many business deals I've closed that keep this airline in business? Meanwhile, you're prioritizing someone who probably used some minority scholarship program to get an upgrade. Gasps erupted from several nearby passengers. One elderly woman muttered audibly, "How dare he?" Jasmine sat perfectly still, years of experience having taught her that displaying any emotion, especially anger, no matter how justified, would only play into harmful stereotypes. But inside, she was shaking with fury and humiliation. It was then that Curtis leaned down, his face inches from Jasmine's, and said words that would soon be heard by millions across the country. You need to know your place, he spat, small, droplets of saliva landing on Jasmine's cheek as he gestured toward the back of the plane. And it's not here. The cabin went silent. Every phone was recording now. Trevor had backed away from his father, tears of shame visible in his eyes. Maya stepped forward, positioning herself between Curtis and Jasmine. When she spoke, her voice was clear, measured, and loud enough for everyone to hear. Sir, on this aircraft, Ms. Williams's place is exactly where she's sitting, in the seat she was assigned. Your place, however, is now in question. Federal aviation. Regulations prohibit threatening or interfering with flight crew members performing their duties. They also protect all passengers' right to dignity and safety. Now you have 2 choices. Return to your assigned seat immediately, or I'll arrange for security to meet our aircraft in Denver. The decision is yours, but it needs to be made now. What happens when someone finally stands up to a bully at 30,000 feet? How will Curtis respond to being challenged by someone he considers beneath him? And what consequences will this confrontation have once the plane touches down? Stay tuned, as this situation takes an unexpected turn that no one on the flight could have anticipated. A stunned silence blanketed the cabin. Maya's powerful response had done what seemed impossible. rendered Curtis Whitfield momentarily speechless. His mouth opened and closed without producing words, like a fish suddenly pulled from water. "Can say?" Passenger recording across the aisle whispered audibly, "Oh my God, that was amazing." Finally finding his voice, Curtis sputtered, "How dare you speak to me that way? I want your name and employee number. This is the end of your career, do you understand me?" Maya remained remarkably composed. "My name is Maya Chen, and my employee number is on my name tag, sir. Now, we're preparing for descent into Denver. 2 flight attendants will escort you to seat 18A, which is currently unoccupied and still in first class but away from Ms. Williams. Your son is welcome to join you there if you'd like." As if on cue, 2 male flight attendants appeared. They didn't touch Curtis, but their presence made it clear this was no longer a negotiation. "This isn't over," Curtis hissed, directing his glare at both Maya and Jasmine before finally allowing himself to be led away. As he departed, several passengers broke into spontaneous applause. An older black woman across the aisle reached over and briefly squeezed Jasmine's hand in solidarity, not saying a word, but communicating volumes. Once, Curtis was relocated. Maya leaned down beside Jasmine. "Ms. Williams, I'm so sorry you experienced that. Are you all right?" Jasmine nodded, but the calm facade she'd maintained throughout the confrontation was beginning to crack. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in." But she wasn't fine. As the adrenaline of the confrontation ebbed, Jasmine felt the all-too-familiar wave of reaction setting in. Her chest tightened, each breath becoming more difficult than the last. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. She recognized the symptoms of an impending panic attack, something she hadn't experienced since graduate school, when a professor had publicly suggested her scholarship should have gone to someone more deserving. Maya noticed the change immediately. "Take slow, deep breaths," she instructed gently. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Would you like me to bring you some water or tea?" "Water, please," Jasmine managed, concentrating on controlling her breathing. As Maya stepped away, a white woman in her mid-30s leaned across from the seat in front of Jasmine. "Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm a meditation instructor. Would it help if I talked you through some grounding techniques?" Normally, Jasmine might have politely declined, preferring to handle her anxiety privately. But something about Eliza's genuine concern broke through her usual reserve. She nodded gratefully. For the next few minutes, as the plane began its descent into Denver, Eliza quietly guided Jasmine through techniques to calm her autonomic nervous system. Feel your feet planted firmly on the floor of the aircraft. Notice 5 things you can see around you. By the time the plane touched down at Denver International Airport, Jasmine had regained her composure, though the residual effects of the confrontation still lingered in her tense shoulders and slightly accelerated heartbeat. "Thank you," she told Eliza sincerely. "That really helped." "No thanks needed. What that man did was absolutely unacceptable," Eliza replied. "I recorded the whole thing, by the way. If you ever need the video for any reason, here's my card. I'd be happy to send it to you." Jasmine took the business card, noting that Eliza was a wellness coach based in Portland. Another unexpected ally in an unlikely place. As passengers prepared to deplane for the safety inspection, Jasmine checked her phone, which had been in airplane mode. The moment she connected to the airport Wi-Fi, it exploded with notifications, text messages, Twitter alerts, emails, LinkedIn, notifications, dozens upon dozens pouring in simultaneously. Confused, she opened Twitter first and froze. There it was, a video titled, "Racist Executive Tells Black Woman to Know Her Place on Flight. Flight Attendant's Response is Everything." It already had over 2 million views and was climbing rapidly. The hashtag #SoccerFlyingWhileBlack was trending nationwide. Someone had uploaded their recording of the confrontation while the plane was still in the air, using the in-flight Wi-Fi. The clip captured everything. Curtis's demand that she move, his contemptuous "someone like you" comment, his "know your place" remark, and Maya's powerful response. Jasmine's face was clearly visible, as was Curtis's. Her phone continued buzzing with incoming messages. From Mom. "Baby, are you okay? You're all over Twitter. Call me as soon as you land." From her best friend Taylor. OMG Jazz, just saw the
video. That racist jerk. You handled it with so much class. Call me. From an unknown number. You uppity bow. Hope you crash before you reach Seattle. Jasmine nearly dropped her phone at that last one. How had someone found her number so
quickly? As passengers filed off the plane for the Denver layover, Jasmine noticed people staring at her, some with sympathy, others with barely disguised hostility. She overheard snippets of conversation. "That's her, from the video." Showed that entitled exec what's what. Probably provoked him, they didn't show the whole thing. The terminal was no refuge. As Jasmine made her way to a quiet corner to call her mother, she felt eyes following her. The viral explosion of the video had transformed her into an instantly recognizable figure, a symbol in a national conversation about race and privilege that she had never asked to lead. Her mother answered on the first ring. "Jasmine Elizabeth Williams, are you all right?" "I'm okay, Mom," she assured her, though her voice wavered slightly. "It was intense, but I'm fine. Your father is ready to fly out there right now," her mother said, and Jasmine could hear her father's deep voice in the background asking for the phone. "Put him on speaker," Jasmine requested. "Baby girl," her father's voice came through, solid and reassuring as always. "You need us to come out there? Just say the word." "No, Dad. I need to handle this myself," Jasmine replied, drawing strength from their concern. "My interview at Horizon is too important." "More important than your safety?" her mother questioned. "That video is everywhere, Jasmine, and you know how these things can get ugly." As if confirming her mother's fears, Jasmine's phone pinged with another notification, an email from an address she didn't recognize with the subject line, "Attention-seeking Black BWS gets what's coming." She closed the email without opening it. "I'll be careful, I promise. But this interview is everything I've been working toward. I can't turn back now." After reassuring her parents further and promising to check in regularly, Jasmine ended the call. As she looked up, she noticed a crowd gathering near one of the terminal's large TV screens. Approaching cautiously, she realized with a jolt that she was watching herself on national news. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Airline racism controversy. Video of confrontation goes viral." The news anchor was speaking. "Confrontation that has ignited fierce debate online. The incident aboard Flight 2267 has been viewed over 5 million times in just the past hour." Jasmine backed away from the crowd, pulling her jacket hood up in a futile attempt at anonymity. She needed to find somewhere quiet to process what was happening and prepare for the next leg of the journey to Seattle. As she turned, she nearly collided with a large man in a security uniform. 2 more security officers flanked him. "Ms. Williams?" he asked, though it was clear he already knew who she was. "I'm Officer Ramirez with Airport Security. Would you please come with us? There's been an incident." "What kind of incident?" Jasmine asked, her heart rate accelerating again. "Mr. Whitfield has made some allegations that we need to discuss," Officer Ramirez explained, his expression giving nothing away. "It's better if we talk privately." With a sinking feeling, Jasmine followed the security team, acutely aware of the stares and whispers that tracked her progress across the terminal. What had begun as a routine flight to a job interview had spiraled into something far beyond her control. The video was spreading across the internet like wildfire, and she was caught in the center of a storm that showed no signs of abating. As they approached a door marked Airport Security, Jasmine spotted Curtis Whitfield standing just inside, a satisfied smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Whatever allegations he had made, he clearly believed they would work in his favor. The door closed behind her with a heavy click, and Jasmine found herself wondering if she would make it to Seattle at all, let alone to her career-defining interview tomorrow morning. Inside the small conference room, Curtis Whitfield sat with the confident posture of a man who expected the system to work in his favor, as it always had. Beside him stood Trevor, his son, looking miserable and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Officer Ramirez gestured for Jasmine to take a seat across from them. "Ms. Williams, Mr. Whitfield has made a serious allegation. He claims you verbally threatened his son prior to the recorded incident on the aircraft." Jasmine's jaw dropped. "That's completely false. I never spoke to his son at all. I didn't even know they were related until Mr. Whitfield approached my seat. Curtis leaned forward, his expression a practiced mask of concern. My son was terrified. He tried to politely ask about switching seats before I got involved, and this woman told him to, and I quote, "get his privileged white ass back to where he belongs." "That never happened," Jasmine protested, looking at Trevor, whose gaze remained fixed on the floor. "Officer Ramirez, there were dozens of witnesses on that flight. No one heard me say anything like that because it never occurred." Curtis shook his head with exaggerated sadness. "This is exactly the kind of race baiting behavior that's tearing our country apart. My family and I have been subjected to a virtual lynch mob on social media because of a deceptively edited video. And now..." "Dad, stop." Trevor's quiet voice cut through his father's performance. The room fell silent as the teenager finally looked up, his face flushed with shame. "She never said anything to me. We never spoke at all before you went up to her seat. I was waiting in the back like you told me to." Curtis's face hardened. "Trevor, you're confused. Remember what she said to you when..." "I'm not confused," Trevor interrupted, his voice stronger now. "I'm tired of lying for you. She never threatened me. She never even looked at me until you started making a scene." Officer Ramirez studied the boy, then looked at Curtis, whose confident facade had cracked to reveal barely contained fury. "Mr. Whitfield, making false reports to airport security is a serious offense. My son is clearly intimidated by this situation," Curtis tried, shooting Trevor a warning glance. "He's just trying to defuse things." "Actually," came a new voice from the doorway, "we have reviewed the aircraft's security footage, which includes audio recording in the business class cabin." Maya Chen stood there, accompanied by a man in a pilot's uniform who introduced himself as Captain Rodriguez. "The footage confirms that Ms. Williams never interacted with the younger Mr. Whitfield prior to the recorded incident," Captain Rodriguez stated. "In fact, it shows that Mr. Whitfield instructed his son to remain in economy while he went to confront Ms. Williams." Curtis's face reddened. "This is outrageous. Do you have any idea who I am? I can have all of your jobs with one phone call." Officer Ramirez remained unimpressed. "Mr. Whitfield, we're dismissing your complaint as unfounded. You're free to reboard your flight when it's cleared for departure, but I strongly suggest you reconsider your behavior." "This isn't over," Curtis spat as he stood, grabbing Trevor roughly by the arm. "Let's go." As they left, Trevor glanced back at Jasmine with an apologetic look that spoke volumes about what life with Curtis Whitfield must be like. When they were gone, Officer Ramirez turned to Jasmine. "Ms. Williams, I apologize for the inconvenience. You're free to go." Outside the security office, Maya waited for Jasmine. "Are you all right? That man is unbelievable." "I'm hanging in there," Jasmine replied, though exhaustion was evident in her voice. "Thank you again for your support." "I should be thanking you," Maya said with a slight smile. "That video of our interaction has people calling me a hero online. Though I'm a bit worried about how the airline will react once all this attention dies down." They walked together through the terminal, both acutely aware of the stares following them. Maya glanced at her watch. "We have about 40 minutes before reboarding. Can I buy you a coffee? You look like you could use one." At a quiet corner cafe, away from prying eyes, Jasmine and Maya found an unexpected moment of peace. As they talked, they discovered surprising connections. "My brother works in aerospace engineering," Maya mentioned casually, stirring her tea. "Really? That's my field," Jasmine replied with interest. "Where does he work?" "Horizon Aerospace in Seattle. He's in the materials division." Jasmine nearly choked on her coffee. "That's where I'm interviewing tomorrow. What's his name?" "David Chen. He's been there about 5 years now." "Wait. David Chen, who presented the paper on carbon nanotube applications last year at the AIAA conference?" Jasmine asked, her eyes widening. Maya nodded, looking impressed. "You know his work?" "I cited his research in my own paper. This is such a small world." For the first time since the confrontation, Jasmine felt a genuine smile spread across her face. The coincidence seemed like a good omen, a reminder that not everything was falling apart. Their moment of connection was interrupted by an announcement that boarding for the continuation of Flight 2267 to Seattle would begin in 15 minutes. As they gathered their things to head back to the gate, Jasmine's phone vibrated with an email notification. She glanced down and felt the brief moment of optimism evaporate. The email was from Horizon Aerospace's HR department. Dear Ms. Williams, in light of recent events that have come to our attention, we believe it would be in everyone's best interest to postpone your interview, originally scheduled for tomorrow morning. We'll be in touch regarding possible rescheduling. Regards, Horizon Aerospace Human Resources. Jasmine stared at the screen, unable to process the words at first. They're postponing my interview, she finally said, her voice hollow. Because of the video. Maya read the email over Jasmine's shoulder, her expression darkening. That's discrimination. They can't do that. They're not saying it's because of the video, Jasmine pointed out, the familiar weight of disappointment settling in her chest. They're just saying recent events. It's vague enough that they can deny any improper motive. Let me call my brother, Maya offered, pulling out her phone. He might be able to find out what's really going on. As Maya stepped away to make the call, Jasmine refreshed her social media feeds, immediately regretting the decision. The video had exploded even further, with over 10 million views now. What was more disturbing were the comments, which had divided into vicious opposing camps. Some users hailed Jasmine as a symbol of dignified resistance against everyday racism. Others accused her of playing the race card to gain attention, claiming she'd provoked Curtis deliberately for social media fame. Worse still were the direct messages flooding her accounts, everything from heartfelt support to explicit death threats. One message contained her parents' home address with the ominous text, "We know where to find your family." Maya returned, her expression troubled. David says there's more to this story. Apparently, Curtis Whitfield isn't just any businessman. He's a major investor in several aerospace companies, including Horizon. He sits on their advisory board. The final piece clicked into place. Of course, Curtis wasn't just an entitled passenger. He had direct influence over the very company Jasmine hoped to join. So he's already making good on his threat, Jasmine said quietly. He's trying to destroy my career before it even begins. David says the CEO is furious about the postponement. She's going toe-to-toe with the board over it. This isn't over yet. Before Jasmine could respond, a commotion near the gate caught their attention. Curtis Whitfield stood surrounded by reporters, playing the role of a grieved victim to perfection. Deeply regrettable situation where a simple request was mischaracterized, he was saying, his voice dripping with false sincerity. My family and I have always supported diversity initiatives. In fact, my foundation has donated millions to urban education programs. How does he live with himself? Maya muttered in disgust. As they watched, travelers began lining up for boarding. Jasmine noticed an uncomfortable hush fall over the crowd as she approached the gate. Some passengers gave her encouraging nods, while others deliberately avoided eye contact. Maya's phone buzzed with a message from the airline's scheduling department. Her face fell as she read it. They're launching an investigation into my handling of a customer service incident. I've been placed on administrative review pending the outcome. That's not right, Jasmine protested. You were just doing your job. Welcome to corporate America, Maya replied with a resigned shrug. Where standing up against racism gets you punished and perpetrating it gets you coddled. As they prepared to board, Jasmine glanced back at Curtis, who was still holding court with the media. Their eyes met briefly across the terminal, and the smug smile that crossed his face sent a chill down her spine. This was no longer just about a seat on an airplane or even a job interview. It had become something much bigger and more dangerous. A battle against a powerful man who could destroy lives with a phone call. And as Jasmine stepped onto the jet bridge toward Seattle, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The second leg of the flight to Seattle was mercifully shorter than the first, but for Jasmine, each minute felt like an eternity. The business class cabin had transformed from a sanctuary into a fishbowl. Passengers openly stared, whispered, behind cupped hands, or pretended with obvious effort not to notice her. A few snapped furtive photos when they thought she wasn't looking. Curtis Whitfield had been reseated at the very front of the cabin, as far from Jasmine as possible. She could see only the back of his head, but his aggressive phone conversation was audible even over the engine noise. "I don't care what it takes," he barked into his device. "This needs to be handled immediately. She's made a complete fool of me, and I want her to understand the consequences." Maya, still serving the cabin despite her pending administrative review, paused beside Jasmine's seat. "Try to rest," she suggested softly. "It's only another 40 minutes to Seattle." Rest seemed impossible. Jasmine's phone continued to explode with notifications despite her attempts to silence it. The hashtag, Flying While Black, had evolved to include Chuck Justice for Jasmine and, more disturbingly, Chuck Team Curtis. The incident was cleaving social media along predictable racial and political lines, with Jasmine and Curtis as unwilling figureheads for opposing worldviews. When the plane finally touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Jasmine was shocked to see the flashing lights of news vans through the windows. Somehow, the media had been alerted to their arrival gate. "This can't be happening," she whispered, shrinking into her seat as the plane taxied to the gate. Captain Rodriguez emerged from the cockpit, stopping at her row. "Ms. Williams, airport security has arranged for you to deplane first and exit through a service area to avoid the media if you prefer." His kindness nearly brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you. That would be helpful." As she gathered her belongings, Curtis shouldered past toward the exit, deliberately bumping her arm. "Enjoy your 15 minutes, he muttered. "It'll be over soon." The promised security escort arrived, and Jasmine was quickly guided through employee corridors to avoid the main terminal. Even so, she caught glimpses of reporters interviewing passengers from her flight, and Curtis holding an impromptu press conference, gesturing dramatically as cameras flashed around him. Once safely in a taxi, Jasmine called her hotel to confirm her reservation. The conversation left her stunned. "I'm sorry, Ms. Williams, but your reservation was canceled approximately 2 hours ago," the front desk clerk informed her. "Canceled? By whom? I certainly didn't cancel it." "The notes indicate the cancellation came from your company, Horizon Aerospace. Would you like to rebook? I should warn you, we're completely full tonight due to a technology conference." Have you ever had someone powerful try to derail your success out of pure spite? What lengths would you go to if someone was systematically trying to dismantle your dream? Type "fight back" in the comments if you believe Jasmine should stand her ground, or "walk away" if you think the cost is becoming too high. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you believe everyone deserves a fair chance, regardless of their background. After calling 6 other hotels with the same result, all fully booked, Jasmine sat on a bench outside the airport, fighting back tears of frustration. Curtis had clearly called ahead to his business contacts in Seattle. He was making good on his promise to teach her a lesson. Her phone rang with an unknown local number. Hesitantly, she answered. "Jasmine, this is Maya Chen. How are you holding up?" "Not great," Jasmine admitted. "Someone canceled my hotel reservation, and there's not a room available anywhere in the city." "That's why I'm calling," Maya said. "My cousin Lee lives in Seattle. She has a spare room and would be happy to let you stay there tonight. I told her what happened, and she's outraged on your behalf." Once again, an unexpected ally had appeared just when Jasmine needed one most. She accepted gratefully, jotting down the address Maya provided. Lee Chen turned out to be a software engineer with a cozy apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. She welcomed Jasmine with genuine warmth. "Any friend of Maya's is welcome here," Lee said, showing her to a small but comfortable guest room. "And anyone who stands up to entitled jerks like that guy on the plane is my personal hero." For a brief moment, Jasmine allowed herself to relax. She had a safe place to stay. Her interview materials were intact, and despite the postponement email, she was determined to appear at Horizon Aerospace tomorrow as originally scheduled. Perhaps she could salvage this situation after all. That fragile optimism shattered when she opened her laptop to check her email. Her inbox had been flooded with hundreds of messages from strangers. "You go, girl. Don't let them push you around. Attention-seeking race baiter. Go back to where you came from. I've shared your story with my daughters as an example of standing up for yourself. I know where you live. Sleep tight. The messages ranged from heartfelt support to vicious threats with little middle ground. More disturbing still were the emails from aerospace industry contacts, people she'd networked with over years, who were suddenly too busy to recommend her for positions or collaborate on projects. Curtis Whitfield's influence was expansive, and he was wielding it like a weapon. Lee appeared in the doorway with a mug of tea. "You okay? You look pale." Jasmine closed her laptop. "Just dealing with the aftermath of today." "It's everywhere," Lee confirmed, sitting beside her. "You're trending on every platform. Team Jasmine versus Team Curtis. People are taking sides without knowing the full story." "And what's your take?" Jasmine asked, suddenly curious about this stranger who had opened her home. Lee smiled sadly. "As an Asian woman in tech, I've experienced my share of know-your-place moments. Never quite that publicly, but I get it. The constant battle to be taken seriously. The suspicion that you only got opportunities because of diversity initiatives, not your talents." Jasmine nodded, feeling understood in a way only another woman of color in a white-dominated industry could understand. A notification chimed on Lee's phone. She glanced down, then let out a small gasp. "Oh no." "What is it?" Jasmine asked. Lee hesitated, then turned her phone screen toward Jasmine. It showed a breaking news alert from a conservative outlet. Exclusive. Aggressive passenger threatened businessman and child. The video they don't want you to see. The accompanying video was clearly edited from the original footage, cutting out Curtis's most offensive statements and Maya's response, while emphasizing moments when Jasmine appeared most agitated. It painted a completely different picture. One, where Curtis was a concerned father being harassed by an unreasonable woman playing the victim. "They're completely twisting what happened," Jasmine whispered, her head spinning. "Welcome to the internet culture wars," Lee said grimly. "You're not just dealing with one angry executive anymore. You've become a symbol in a much bigger fight." As the night wore on, the situation deteriorated further. Curtis appeared on a primetime cable news show, portraying himself as a defender of traditional values, being persecuted by woke culture. He never mentioned Jasmine by name, but his references to professional victims looking for social media fame made his target clear. Jasmine barely slept. By morning, her phone contained dozens of missed calls from news outlets seeking comment, along with a message from her parents that someone had called their home making threatening remarks. The universe had one final blow to deliver. As she prepared to leave for her interview, postponement be damned, Jasmine received another email from Horizon Aerospace. "Dear Ms. Williams, we regret to inform you that the position you were being considered for has been filled internally. We appreciate your interest in Horizon Aerospace and wish you success in your future endeavors." They hadn't even given her the chance to interview. The door had been closed before she could even knock. The gleaming glass headquarters of Horizon Aerospace rose 40 stories above downtown Seattle. Its sleek design meant to evoke the same cutting-edge innovation the company prided itself on. Under different circumstances, Jasmine would have admired the architecture. Today, she saw only a fortress she needed to breach. Despite the rejection email, she had put on her interview suit, gathered her portfolio, and taken a rideshare to the address. If they wanted to reject her to her face, they would have to do exactly that to her face. The security guard at the front desk looked up in recognition as she approached. News coverage of the airplane incident had made her instantly identifiable. "I have an interview scheduled with Elizabeth Carter's team," Jasmine stated confidently, presenting her ID as if nothing were amiss. The guard hesitated, checked his computer, then made a phone call. After a brief conversation, he printed a visitor badge. "Someone will be down to escort you shortly." 15 minutes later, a harried-looking HR representative named Kevin appeared. "Ms. Williams, there seems to be some confusion. We sent you an email indicating the position has been filled." "There's no confusion," Jasmine replied calmly. "I received your email. I also received a personal invitation from CEO Elizabeth Carter to discuss my research. Unless Ms. Carter herself tells me she's no longer interested, I intend to keep that appointment." Kevin's discomfort was palpable as he led her to an elevator. The ride to the executive floor passed in awkward silence. The conference room Kevin deposited her in had a spectacular view of Puget Sound, but Jasmine was more interested in the people filing in. Instead of the technical team she had expected to meet, she found herself facing 3 executives in expensive suits, all wearing identical expressions of corporate caution. "Ms. Williams," began the oldest of the 3, "I'm James Henderson, Chief Operating Officer. This is Patricia Huang, our General Counsel, and Richard Blackwell, VP of Human Resources. We appreciate you coming in today, but as our email indicated—" "Where is Elizabeth Carter?" Jasmine interrupted. "She personally invited me to discuss my research on advanced composite materials." The executives exchanged glances. Patricia Huang cleared her throat. "Ms. Carter is unavailable at the moment. Given the situation that has developed, we felt it would be best to handle this meeting." "What situation exactly?" Jasmine asked, though she knew perfectly well what they meant. Richard Blackwell shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Williams, surely you understand that Horizon Aerospace must remain neutral in any public controversies. The social media situation involving you and Mr. Whitfield has created a complex dynamic." "A complex dynamic?" Jasmine repeated flatly. "Is that corporate speak for Curtis Whitfield threatened to pull his investments if you hired me?" Patricia Huang's slight wince told Jasmine her guess had hit the mark. "We believe it would be in everyone's best interest to postpone any potential employment discussions until this situation has resolved itself," Henderson stated diplomatically. Jasmine took a deep breath. This was the moment where they expected her to accept defeat gracefully, to understand that the system was simply too powerful to fight. Instead, she opened her portfolio and removed her presentation materials. "My research on carbon nanotube reinforced composite materials could reduce aircraft weight by up to 18%, while increasing tensile strength by 23%, she began, her voice steady and authoritative. "The manufacturing process I've developed reduces production costs by nearly 30% compared to current methods." She turned to the whiteboard and began diagramming the molecular structure, continuing her presentation as if she hadn't been interrupted. For the next 12 minutes, she delivered a masterclass in materials science, answering technical questions that Henderson reluctantly began asking despite himself. By the time she finished, even Patricia Huang was taking notes. Richard Blackwell looked openly impressed. "Your research is certainly compelling," Henderson admitted, "under different circumstances." The door opened abruptly, and Elizabeth Carter herself strode in. The CEO was a formidable woman in her 60s, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob, and an energy that immediately commanded the room. "I apologize for my tardiness," she announced, though her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. Bored. Meeting ran long. She extended her hand to Jasmine. "Dr. Williams, I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your paper on molecular alignment in composite curing processes was brilliant." The other executives appeared stunned by Carter's arrival. Henderson recovered first. "Elizabeth, we were just explaining to Ms. Williams that given the current social media situation—" "Yes, I'm aware of the situation," Carter cut him off. "I'm also aware that Dr. Williams is the most qualified candidate for this position, and that her research could give us a significant advantage over our competitors." She turned back to Jasmine. "I'd like to continue this conversation in my office if you don't mind." As they left the conference room, Jasmine caught sight of Henderson urgently texting someone. She had no illusions about what was happening. Corporate politics were in full swing, with Carter clearly at odds with other executives or board members about her hiring. In Carter's spacious office, the CEO dispensed with pleasantries. "I'll be direct, Dr. Williams. Curtis Whitfield sits on our advisory board and has significant investments in this company. He's made his opposition to your employment quite clear." "I gathered as much," Jasmine replied. "What you may not know is that Curtis is leading a faction of investors attempting to oust me as CEO. They believe my focus on recruiting diverse talent and investing in longer-term research is less profitable than cost-cutting and outsourcing." Carter's expression was grim. Your situation has become a proxy battle in a larger war for the company's future. So even if you wanted to hire me, your hands are tied, Jasmine concluded. I didn't say that, Carter replied with a hint of steel in her voice. I said it's a battle. I've survived in this industry for 35 years by choosing my battles carefully and winning them decisively. This unexpected glimmer of hope was interrupted by Jasmine's phone buzzing. Normally, she would have ignored it during such an important meeting, but given recent events, she glanced at the screen. It was a text from Maya. Urgent. The airline is pushing me to sign a statement saying I overreacted to a routine customer service issue. If I refuse, they'll fire me for violating protocol. What should I do? Jasmine looked up from her phone to find Carter watching her closely. Problem? The CEO asked. The flight attendant who stood up for me is being pressured to retract her statement or lose her job, Jasmine explained, suddenly weary. The web of consequences from that confrontation was expanding ever outward, entangling more innocent people in its strands. Carter nodded thoughtfully. The ripple effects of standing up to power are rarely confined to a single moment or person. She seemed to be making a decision. Dr. Williams, I can't officially offer you the position today. There are board politics I need to navigate first, but I want you to know that I'm not giving up. Neither should you. As Jasmine left Horizon Aerospace, her emotions were mixed. Carter's support was encouraging, but it came with no guarantees. The machinery Curtis had set in motion was powerful, a coordinated campaign to isolate and discredit her professionally. Her phone rang as she reached the street. An unknown number, but she answered anyway. Ms. Williams? This is Trevor Whitfield. Jasmine nearly dropped her phone in shock. Trevor? How did you get my number? From your LinkedIn profile, he admitted. I know this is weird, but I had to call. I wanted to apologize for my dad. What he did on that plane, what he's still doing to you, it's wrong. Thank you, Jasmine said cautiously. But you should know your father might not react well if he finds out you contacted me. I know. Trevor's voice was quiet but determined. He's always been like this. The racism, the entitlement, using his power to hurt people who stand up to him. My mom left because of it 3 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. She's happier now. There was a pause. I took screenshots of his emails, the ones where he's telling his business contacts to blacklist you, and messages to his PR team about how to spin the video. Would that help you? Jasmine's breath caught. Trevor, are you sure you want to get involved? He's your father. Yeah, and I have to live with that, but I don't have to become him. His voice cracked slightly. I've spent my whole life watching him hurt people and get away with it because everyone's too afraid to stand up to him. For once, I want to be on the right side. After arranging a secure method for Trevor to send the documents, Jasmine headed back to Lee's apartment, her mind racing with new possibilities. Perhaps with evidence of Curtis's deliberate campaign against her, she could fight back more effectively. But when she arrived, Lee met her at the door with a troubled expression. There's something you need to see. On the television, a conservative pundit was interviewing Curtis Whitfield, who had fully embraced his new role as warrior against cancel culture. I've dedicated my life to creating opportunities for all Americans, he was saying with practiced sincerity. Which is why today, I'm announcing a $1 million donation to the National Scholarship Fund for Underprivileged Youth. A generous gesture, the interviewer commented. Some might see this as an attempt to repair your image after the airplane incident. Curtis smiled sadly. I prefer to see it as turning something negative into a positive. While certain individuals seek to divide us along racial lines for social media attention, I believe in bringing people together through concrete actions. Lee muted the television. He's remaking himself as some kind of charitable savior while painting you as an attention seeker. Jasmine sank onto the couch, momentarily overwhelmed by the resources Curtis could deploy in this fight. He had media, connections, corporate influence, and apparently unlimited funds to reshape the narrative. Her phone buzzed with an email alert. Opening it, she felt the final piece of hope slip away. Dr. Williams, while I remain impressed by your qualifications, I regret to inform you that the position we discussed has been offered to another candidate. Board concerns about potential disruption to our corporate culture ultimately prevailed. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Elizabeth Carter, CEO, Horizon Aerospace. The message was formal, impersonal, clearly written, with the understanding that it might someday be part of a legal record. Carter had lost the internal battle. They gave the job to someone else, Jasmine said quietly, showing Lee the email. Let me guess, Lee replied bitterly. A less qualified white man with connections to Curtis's business network? Jasmine checked LinkedIn and found her answer immediately. The new senior materials engineer at Horizon Aerospace was Bradley Thompson, previously a mid-level manager at one of Curtis's portfolio companies. In less than 24 hours, Curtis Whitfield had systematically dismantled the career opportunity she had spent years working toward. All because she had refused to give up a seat that was rightfully hers. The morning after losing the Horizon position, Jasmine sat in Lee's living room, staring blankly at her laptop. The viral moment that had defined her week was beginning to fade from the public consciousness, replaced by newer controversies. But the damage to her life remained very real. Her phone rang. It was her mother. We're booking flights to Seattle, Elizabeth Williams stated without preamble. Your father and I have been discussing it, and you shouldn't be facing this alone. Mom, no, Jasmine replied gently. I appreciate it, but flying out here won't solve anything. Then come home, baby. Just until things settle down. You can apply for positions from here just as easily. The suggestion was tempting. Retreat to the safety of her parents' home in Atlanta, lick her wounds, and try again somewhere Curtis Whitfield had less influence. But something inside Jasmine rebelled at the thought. If I leave now, he wins completely, she said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. This isn't just about me anymore. After reassuring her parents that she was safe, though carefully avoiding mention of the threatening messages, still flooding her accounts, Jasmine hung up and opened Twitter. The hashtag #JusticeForJasmine was still trending, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of facing discrimination in professional settings. She scrolled through message after message. When I refused to let my white colleague take credit for my work, I was labeled not a team player. March of Justice for Jasmine. Security followed me through my own office building because I didn't look like I belonged there. Justice for Jasmine. Watching that flight attendant stand up for Jasmine gave me courage to finally report the harassment I've been facing at work. Justice for Jasmine. These voices, these experiences, resonated deeply. People were finding strength in what had happened to her, even as she herself felt defeated. A new notification appeared on her screen, a direct message from an account called Fight for Fairness. Dr. Williams, my name is Sarah Johnson. I'm a civil rights attorney specializing in employment discrimination cases. What Curtis Whitfield is doing to you is textbook retaliation and blacklisting. If you're interested in discussing legal options, please contact me. Jasmine stared at the message for a long moment. Legal action had crossed her mind, but the prospect of taking on someone with Curtis's resources seemed daunting. Still, what did she have to lose at this point? She clicked through to Sarah Johnson's profile and found a respected attorney with an impressive record of winning discrimination cases against powerful opponents. After a quick background check confirmed Sarah's credentials, Jasmine sent a reply, asking to set up a call. Within an hour, she was speaking with Sarah, whose no-nonsense attitude and strategic thinking were immediately apparent. Here's the situation as I see it, Sarah explained after hearing the full story. Curtis Whitfield made explicitly racial comments to you in a public setting. He then used his business influence to sabotage your employment prospects. We have video evidence of the first part, and if what Trevor is offering pans out, we'll have documentation of the second. But he's got unlimited resources to fight this, Jasmine pointed out, and connections throughout the industry. True, Sarah acknowledged. But he also has vulnerabilities. His companies depend on public image and investor confidence. A well-documented lawsuit alleging racial discrimination and professional retaliation could damage both. For the first time since the confrontation, Jasmine felt a spark of hope. Perhaps there was a way to fight back after all. That spark was nearly extinguished later that afternoon when she received an email notification from a legal database she subscribed to. New filing alert, Whitfield v. Williams. Curtis had filed a defamation lawsuit against her, claiming the viral video had caused substantial damage to his personal and professional reputation, and demanding $5 million in compensatory damages. "He's suing me?" Jasmine said incredulously when she called Sarah with the news. "After everything he's done?" "It's a classic intimidation tactic," Sarah explained, sounding unsurprised. "He's trying to force you to back down by threatening financial ruin. But this actually gives us an opportunity. We can file a countersuit and use the discovery process to obtain evidence of his retaliatory actions." As Jasmine absorbed this development, another crisis erupted. Her social media feeds exploded with a press release from National Airways announcing a formal apology to Curtis Whitfield for his negative experience aboard Flight 2267. The airline was offering him free first-class travel for a year as compensation. Maya called moments later, devastated. "They suspended me without pay pending the investigation. They're saying I've violated customer service protocols by taking sides in a passenger dispute." "This is outrageous," Jasmine fumed. "You were defending me against racial harassment." The airline doesn't see it that way, or rather, they don't want to see it that way. Curtis apparently threatened to pull his company's corporate account unless they made things right. Another innocent person, paying the price for standing beside her. The injustice of it burned in Jasmine's chest. As evening fell, an unexpected message arrived from Trevor Whitfield. He had sent the promised documents, dozens of emails and text messages showing Curtis's deliberate campaign to destroy Jasmine's reputation and career prospects. In one particularly damning exchange, Curtis explicitly instructed a business associate to make sure that uppity Benny never works in aerospace again. "This is exactly what we needed," Sarah confirmed after reviewing the materials. "With this evidence, we can file for an emergency injunction to stop Curtis's defamation suit and proceed with our countersuit for discrimination and intentional interference with economic opportunity." A tentative plan was taking shape, but Jasmine still faced immediate practical concerns. Her savings were dwindling, she had no job prospects in Seattle, and the hostile messages continued to pour in. Going home to Atlanta was looking increasingly necessary, regardless of how it might appear. Then came another unexpected lifeline. An email from Quantum Dynamics, one of Horizon's main competitors. "Dr. Williams, we've been following recent events with interest and would like to discuss potential opportunities for someone with your expertise in advanced materials engineering. Our Seattle office would be honored to have you join our team." It seemed too good to be true, a perfect solution appearing just when she needed it most. But something about the timing made Jasmine suspicious. Was this a genuine offer, or was someone looking to exploit her situation for publicity? She forwarded the email to Sarah, who promised to investigate the company's motivations. "Be cautious," the attorney advised. "Companies sometimes make these gestures for the positive press, then find reasons to let you go once the attention has faded." That night, as Jasmine weighed her options, a series of breaking news alerts lit up her phone. Trevor Whitfield had gone public. In a lengthy Instagram post, the teenager had detailed his father's history of racist behavior and shared some of the same documents he had provided to Jasmine. "I can no longer stay silent while my father uses his power and privilege to destroy the life of someone whose only crime was refusing to give up what was rightfully hers," Trevor wrote. "This pattern of behavior has been happening my entire life, and it's time someone finally stood up to him, even if that someone has to be his son." The post was going viral even faster than the original airplane video, with this Trevor's truth trending nationwide. Curtis Whitfield had carefully crafted an image as a benevolent businessman and philanthropist for decades. Now his own son was tearing that facade down with first-hand accounts of the man behind the mask. Jasmine's phone rang. It was Sarah, sounding energized. "Have you seen Trevor's post? This changes everything. The court of public opinion is turning against Curtis, and that will make judges and corporate boards less inclined to do his bidding." For the first time since the confrontation on the plane, Jasmine felt the balance of power shifting. Curtis Whitfield was not invincible after all. With the right strategy and the unexpected allies who had emerged, she might actually be able to hold him accountable. Her moment of optimism was shattered by an urgent text from Lee. "Just got a call from my landlord. Someone complained about having an unauthorized tenant. They're threatening to terminate my lease if you don't leave immediately. I'm so sorry." Curtis was still finding ways to strike at her, targeting even those who offered her shelter. Jasmine began packing her few belongings, feeling once again like a fugitive rather than a victim standing her ground. Lee returned home, as Jasmine was preparing to leave. "This is ridiculous. You don't have to go tonight. We can fight this." "You've already risked enough for me," Jasmine insisted. "I won't let you lose your home too." "Where will you go?" Lee asked worriedly. Jasmine had no answer. Hotels were still booked solid throughout the city, and she had no other contacts in Seattle. For the first time, she faced the very real possibility of having nowhere to sleep that night. Another indignity in the cascading consequences of standing up to Curtis Whitfield. The morning after being forced to leave Lee's apartment, Jasmine found herself in a small, overpriced airport hotel room that had opened up at the last minute. She had spent nearly 3 hours in a 24-hour coffee shop the previous night, calling every accommodation in the greater Seattle area, before finally securing this temporary refuge. Her phone rang early, a number she didn't recognize but with a Seattle area code. Wary but desperate for any potential allies, she answered. "Jasmine Williams? This is Meredith Zhao from the Seattle Independent. I'm an investigative journalist, covering corporate influence in the Pacific Northwest. I'd like to talk to you about what Curtis Whitfield is doing to your career." Jasmine hesitated. Speaking to the media carried risks, but remaining silent meant letting Curtis control the narrative completely. "What exactly are you hoping to discuss?" she asked cautiously. "The pattern," Meredith replied. "Curtis Whitfield has a history of using his corporate influence to crush people who challenge him, particularly women of color. Your case is just the latest example. I've been tracking his behavior for years, but previous targets have been too afraid to speak on the record." After consulting with Sarah, who advised careful parameters for the interview, Jasmine agreed to meet Meredith at a quiet cafe near Pike Place Market. The journalist turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a recorder and a notebook, full of meticulous research. "Before we start," Meredith said, "I want you to understand something. Curtis Whitfield sponsors half the business events in this city. His companies buy advertising with most major media outlets. I'm able to pursue this story because I work for an independent publication with reader-funded support. But even we face risks in challenging someone with his connections." "Why take that risk?" Jasmine asked. Meredith's expression hardened. "Because 5 years ago my sister worked at one of his portfolio companies. She reported sexual harassment by a senior executive who was Curtis's golf buddy. 2 weeks later, she was fired for performance issues. She hasn't been able to work in her field since." The interview lasted nearly 3 hours. Jasmine shared her complete experience, from the confrontation on the plane to the systematic dismantling of her career prospects afterward. Meredith took copious notes, occasionally sharing corroborating information from other sources who had faced similar treatment from Curtis, but were unwilling to be named. "One last question," Meredith said as they were wrapping up. "What do you hope comes from telling your story?" Jasmine considered carefully. "This isn't just about me getting a job or Curtis facing consequences, though both should happen. It's about exposing a system that allows powerful people to punish those who stand up against discrimination. If my story helps change that system even slightly, it's worth telling." As Jasmine left the cafe, her phone alerted her to a breaking news notification. Curtis Whitfield was appearing live on National News Network, the country's most watched conservative cable channel. She ducked into a nearby bookstore and watched the interview on her phone. Curtis had undergone a complete image makeover. Gone was the arrogant executive from the plane, replaced by a sober, concerned citizen worried about the direction of our country. He spoke gravely about the dangers of rush to judgment in the age of viral videos, and portrayed himself as the victim of a coordinated social media campaign. Would you remain silent to protect your career, or speak out against injustice even knowing it could cost you everything? Comment, truth. If you believe speaking up is always worth the risk, or caution if you think picking your battles is wiser. Hit like if you've ever witnessed someone abuse their power, and subscribe to follow Jasmine's journey to justice against seemingly impossible odds. What saddens me most, Curtis said with practiced sincerity, is how quickly we've abandoned the principle of innocent until proven guilty. A deceptively edited video goes viral, and suddenly a 30-year career of creating jobs and supporting underprivileged communities is erased. The interviewer nodded sympathetically. And what about your son's social media posts? That must be particularly painful. Curtis adopted a pained expression. Trevor is a teenager dealing with his parents' divorce. His mother has influenced his perspective. I continue to love my son and hope that with time and maturity, he'll understand the complexities of these situations better. It was a masterful performance designed to appeal to viewers who already believed that accusations of racism were generally overblown. Curtis was positioning himself as the reasonable voice of experience being attacked by oversensitive woke culture. Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Turn on Social Spectrum News. Now. She quickly switched streams to the Progressive News channel, where a panel was discussing the Whitfield situation. To her shock, they were showing internal data from major social media platforms revealing that the Taunter Team Curtis hashtag was being amplified by bot networks and coordinated groups known for promoting divisive content. This is textbook manufactured outrage, a digital forensics expert was explaining. The same patterns we've seen in political influence campaigns are being deployed to shape public opinion about a private dispute. Someone is investing significant resources to control this narrative. The revelation that Curtis was potentially using professional manipulation tactics to boost his support online was both disturbing and strangely validating. She wasn't merely facing one powerful man, but a sophisticated PR machine designed to protect the privileged from accountability. Back at her hotel, Jasmine found an email from Quantum Dynamics, the company that had offered her a position. Sarah had investigated them and discovered troubling connections. Their CEO sits on 2 boards with Curtis Whitfield. This job offer is likely either a trap, they hire you, then find a reason to fire you, damaging your reputation further, or a way to interfere with potential legal action. I strongly advise against pursuing this opportunity. Another door closed. Every path forward seemed blocked by Curtis's far-reaching influence. Her phone rang again. Trevor Whitfield. My dad knows I sent you those documents, he said without preamble, his voice tight with stress. He's cutting me off financially and threatening to pull me out of school unless I post a retraction saying I was manipulated into making false statements. Trevor, I'm so sorry, Jasmine said, genuinely distressed that the teenager was facing such harsh repercussions. What will you do? Stand my ground, he replied with unexpected firmness. I've got screenshots of texts where he's threatening me now too. I'm sending them to you and that reporter you talked to. My dad thinks fear controls everyone around him because it's always worked before. It's time someone showed him he's wrong. Trevor's courage was humbling. Despite facing much more personal consequences than Jasmine herself, he was unwilling to back down from speaking the truth about his father's behavior. As the day progressed, the online battle intensified. Social media companies' algorithms designed to maximize engagement promoted the most divisive and inflammatory content about the controversy. Team Jasmine and Team Curtis became proxies for broader cultural and political divisions, with users on both sides becoming increasingly hostile. Jasmine received notification that Meredith's article had been published online, titled, Pattern of Power, How Curtis Whitfield Silences Those Who Challenge Him. It meticulously documented multiple cases of retaliation against employees, business, associates, and even journalists who had dared to cross him over the years. The piece was powerful, well-researched, and damning, but Jasmine noticed it wasn't gaining the traction it deserved on social media. A quick check of trending topics confirmed her suspicion. The major platforms were suddenly flooded with an unrelated celebrity scandal that was dominating attention. The timing seemed suspiciously convenient. Curtis has connections in the digital PR world, Sarah confirmed when Jasmine called her. They know exactly how to bury unfavorable stories by pushing more sensational content. It's all part of the playbook. By evening, Jasmine faced yet another crisis. Her parents called in a panic. Someone had spray-painted racial slurs and "Go back to Africa" on the garage door of their Atlanta home. "That's it," Jasmine's father declared, his voice shaking with a mixture of fury and fear. "You need to drop this whole thing. It's not worth putting your mother in danger." "Dad, if I back down now—" "I don't care about making a point anymore," he interrupted. "I care about keeping my family safe. Your mother is terrified to go outside. Our neighbors are staring at us. This has gone too far." The weight of responsibility crashed down on Jasmine. Her stand for dignity on that airplane had created ripples affecting not just her own life, but the lives of everyone connected to her: Maya, Lee, Trevor, and now her parents. How many more people would suffer because she had refused to give up her seat? She ended the call with a promise to think carefully about her next steps. The hotel room felt suddenly claustrophobic, the walls closing in as options disappeared one by one. Her phone chimed with a new email, this one from Maya. "Thought you should know. National Airways just fired me. Official reason: failure to follow customer service protocols. Real reason: I stood up to Curtis Whitfield. I don't regret it for a second. Stay strong, Jasmine. If we stop fighting, people like him win forever." Maya had lost her career of 8 years for the crime of preventing racial harassment. The injustice of it all threatened to overwhelm Jasmine completely. She was still processing this news when Sarah called. "I just got word from my contact at the courthouse," the attorney said without preamble. "Curtis's lawsuit against you has been assigned to Judge William Peterson." "Is that good or bad?" Jasmine asked. "Bad," Sarah replied grimly. "Peterson and Curtis belong to the same exclusive country club. They've vacationed together. There's a clear conflict of interest, but Peterson has a history of refusing to recuse himself in similar situations." "Can we challenge it?" "We can. Try, but it's a long shot. The system is designed to protect people like Curtis Whitfield." Sarah paused. "But there's something else you should know. Trevor sent me more documents. Emails showing Curtis discussing you with the HR director at Horizon Aerospace before you even arrived in Seattle." "What do they say?" "They show that Curtis explicitly threatened to withdraw investments if they hired you. He referred to you as, I apologize for repeating this, another diversity hire who needs to be put in her place. It's the smoking gun proving intentional interference with your employment." For the first time, Jasmine had concrete evidence of what she had suspected all along. Curtis Whitfield hadn't just reacted poorly to their interaction on the plane. He had deliberately set out to destroy her career as punishment for standing up to him. "Can we use this in court?" she asked. "Absolutely," Sarah confirmed. "Though with Judge Peterson presiding, we'll face an uphill battle. But there's another option. These emails would be very interesting to the Securities and Exchange Commission." "The SEC, why?" "Because Curtis sits on the board of a publicly traded company, Horizon Aerospace. Using his position to force discriminatory hiring practices potentially violates several securities regulations. The SEC takes a dim view of board members who put personal vendettas above shareholder interests." A new avenue of attack had opened up, one that bypassed Curtis's network of judicial and corporate allies and appealed directly to federal regulators who might be beyond his influence. As Jasmine considered this possibility, she received a text from Lee. "Just saw Meredith's article. You need to check your email, now." Opening her inbox, Jasmine found a message from Elizabeth Carter, CEO of Horizon Aerospace. "Dr. Williams, in light of recent information that has come to my attention, I would like to speak with you privately, off the record. This is not about employment, but about a larger situation involving Curtis Whitfield that I believe you should be aware of. If you're willing to meet, please call my personal number below." It seemed the article had stirred movement within Horizon itself. Perhaps Curtis's influence wasn't as absolute as it had appeared. Just as hope began to flicker again, a final blow landed. Jasmine's phone displayed a notification from her bank's fraud prevention department. Someone had attempted to access her accounts multiple times. As a security measure, her accounts had been temporarily frozen. Curtis was attacking on every front: her reputation, her career prospects, her family's safety, and now her financial security. The message was clear. He would use every resource at his disposal to punish her for daring to stand against him. As night fell on the most turbulent week of her life, Jasmine Williams faced a crucial decision. She could retreat, issue a public apology for the misunderstanding on the plane, and hope Curtis would be satisfied enough to end his campaign against her, or she could continue fighting, knowing the cost would likely grow even higher. The path of least resistance beckoned with the promise of eventual peace. The path of resistance offered only more struggle, with no guarantee of victory. In the EOC quiet of her hotel room, Jasmine thought of Maya losing her job, of Trevor standing up to his father despite the personal cost, of her parents facing hatred on their own doorstep. All because she had refused to move from a seat that was rightfully hers. Sometimes she realized the true cost of dignity couldn't be measured until you were already paying it. The federal courthouse in downtown Seattle stood as a monument to the promise of equal justice, its imposing marble columns and soaring dome suggesting a system above petty biases and personal connections. As Jasmine climbed the steps beside Sarah Johnson, she wanted desperately to believe in that promise. "Remember," Sarah murmured, "Judge Peterson may be in Curtis's pocket, but we're creating a record for appeal. Every word said today will matter later." The initial hearing for Curtis's defamation lawsuit was scheduled for 9 a.m. Curtis had arrived early with a team of 4 attorneys from Preston, Blackwood, and Holt, one of the most expensive corporate law firms in the country. They occupied one side of the courtroom like an invading army, legal assistants arranging documents with military precision. Curtis himself sat at the center of this operation, projecting calm confidence in a perfectly tailored navy suit. When Jasmine entered, he glanced up briefly, his expression betraying nothing. Sarah's prediction about Judge Peterson proved instantly accurate. The silver-haired jurist addressed Curtis's lead attorney, Margaret Preston, with familiar warmth. "Lovely to see you again, Maggie. How's David enjoying his new boat?" "He's fishing every weekend, Your Honor," Preston replied with a smile. "He keeps threatening to retire to Alaska." When Peterson turned to Sarah, his demeanor cooled noticeably. "Ms. Johnson, I see you're representing the defendant. Let's proceed efficiently today." The hearing began with Preston outlining Curtis's defamation claim. "Your Honor, my client has suffered substantial harm to his reputation due to a deceptively edited video that went viral. Mr. Whitfield, a respected businessman and philanthropist, made a simple request for accommodation on an aircraft and was subjected to a coordinated social media campaign painting him as racially insensitive." Sarah stood to respond. "Your Honor, the video in question captures Mr. Whitfield telling my client to know her place while pointing to the back of the plane, a statement with obvious racial connotations. Moreover, we have evidence that Mr. Whitfield subsequently used his business connections to sabotage Dr. Williams's employment opportunities. We've filed a countersuit for racial discrimination and tortious interference with economic opportunity." Judge Peterson frowned. "That's a serious allegation, Ms. Johnson. Do you have evidence to support it?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have emails showing Mr. Whitfield explicitly threatening to withdraw investments from Horizon Aerospace if they hired Dr. Williams, referring to her as a diversity hire who needs to be put in her place." Preston jumped in. "Your Honor, these alleged emails have not been authenticated. We question their provenance and admissibility. They were provided by Trevor Whitfield, the plaintiff's son," Sarah countered. "We'd like to call him as a witness today." A commotion at the back of the courtroom drew all eyes. Trevor Whitfield had entered, flanked by a woman who bore a strong resemblance to Curtis, presumably his mother and Curtis's ex-wife. Curtis half rose from his seat, his composure momentarily shattered. "What is he doing here?" he demanded of his attorneys. Judge Peterson banged his gavel. "Order. Mr. Whitfield, please control yourself." Sarah seized the opening. "Your Honor, Trevor Whitfield is prepared to testify regarding his father's statements and actions following the incident on the aircraft. including specific instructions to colleagues about sabotaging Dr. Williams' career. Additionally, we have surveillance footage from the aircraft that captures the entire interaction, not just the portions that went viral. This announcement visibly startled Curtis's legal team. They huddled in urgent conference while Preston addressed the court. "Your Honor, we were not notified of this additional evidence. We request time to review it." "It was included in our discovery disclosure last week," Sarah replied smoothly. "Page 17 of our exhibit list." Judge Peterson looked displeased but nodded. "Let's see this aircraft footage then." A court officer set up a monitor, and Sarah played the unedited security camera footage from Flight 2267. Unlike the cell phone videos that had circulated online, this footage had clear audio and showed the events from beginning to end, including Curtis instructing Trevor to stay in economy while he confronted Jasmine, Curtis's dismissive "someone like you" comment, and the full context of his "know your place" statement. The courtroom was silent as the video concluded. Even Preston looked uncomfortable. "As you can see, Your Honor," Sarah said into the stillness. There was no deceptive editing. Mr. Whitfield's statements were accurately represented in the viral video. Before Preston could respond, Maya Chen entered the courtroom, carrying a manila envelope. She nodded to Jasmine and took a seat in the back row. Sarah continued, "Additionally, Your Honor, we have evidence of Mr. Whitfield's history of similar incidents with other minority women in professional settings." "Objection," Preston rose quickly. "This is irrelevant to the current case." "It speaks directly to pattern and practice, Your Honor," Sarah countered, "and to Mr. Whitfield's claim that his words were misinterpreted or taken out of context." Judge Peterson looked torn. His connection to Curtis suggested he would favor excluding this evidence, but doing so too blatantly risked an easy appeal. "I'll allow it, but keep it brief and directly relevant, Ms. Johnson." Over the next hour, Sarah presented evidence from 3 previous incidents, all involving women of color who had experienced Curtis's wrath after challenging him in professional settings. In each case, the women had found their careers suddenly derailed, their professional reputations damaged by whisper campaigns. None had pursued legal action, fearing the consequences of challenging someone with Curtis's resources and connections. All had provided sworn affidavits for today's hearing, though none were present in person. Throughout this presentation, Curtis maintained a mask of indifference, but Jasmine noticed his jaw tightening, a vein pulsing at his temple. When Trevor was called to testify, however, Curtis's facade cracked completely. "Trevor, please tell the court what your father said about Dr. Williams after the incident on the aircraft," Sarah requested. Trevor spoke clearly, though his hands trembled slightly. "He called her racist names I won't repeat in court. He said he would make sure she never worked in her field again. He called several business associates from the Denver airport telling them to blacklist her." "And did he ask you to lie about your interaction with Dr. Williams?" "Yes. He told me to say she had threatened me before he got involved. But I never spoke to her at all before he confronted her about the seat." Curtis's attorney objected, claiming parent-child communications were privileged. But Judge Peterson reluctantly overruled her. Even he couldn't stretch legal precedent that far. When Preston began her cross-examination of Trevor, her approach was predictable but effective. "Isn't it true that you're estranged from your father following your parents' divorce? That you blame him for the dissolution of your family?" "My parents divorced because of his behavior," Trevor replied steadily, "including his affairs and his treatment of my mother." "So you admit you have personal reasons to damage your father's reputation?" "I'm here because it's the right thing to do." After Trevor stepped down, Maya Chen was called as a witness. She testified about the airline's reaction to the incident, including her own termination. National Airways conducted an internal investigation that cleared Mr. Whitfield of any wrongdoing, despite the video evidence, Maya explained. "The investigator told me privately that pressure from executive level led to this conclusion, as Mr. Whitfield's company books over $3 million in annual corporate travel with the airline." Preston's cross-examination attacked Maya's credibility, suggesting she was bitter about losing her job and was blaming Curtis rather than her own unprofessional conduct. By the lunch recess, Jasmine felt cautiously optimistic. The evidence against Curtis was mounting, and even Judge Peterson seemed troubled by some of the revelations. As the court reconvened, Preston launched into an aggressive motion to dismiss Jasmine's countersuit, arguing that Curtis's actions were protected speech and legitimate business decisions. Your Honor, my client has every right to express concerns about potential hires at companies where he has significant investments. That's not discrimination, it's sound business judgment. Judge Peterson nodded thoughtfully, and Jasmine's heart sank. Despite the morning's revelations, it seemed the judge was still inclined to favor Curtis. Before I rule on this motion, Peterson said, does the defense have any final evidence to present? Sarah rose. Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call one. Final witness, Elizabeth Carter, CEO of Horizon Aerospace. Curtis visibly startled, turning to confer urgently with his attorneys. This was clearly a development they hadn't anticipated. Elizabeth Carter entered the courtroom with the confident stride that had made her a legend in the aerospace industry. Under oath, she testified about Curtis's explicit threats to withdraw investments if Jasmine was hired. Mr. Whitfield informed me that hiring Dr. Williams would be, and I quote, a mistake you can't afford to make. He further stated that his investment group would reconsider their position in our company if we proceeded with her employment. And did this influence the company's decision not to hire Dr. Williams? Sarah asked. Carter's expression hardened. Initially, yes. Our board was concerned about losing his investment group's backing. However, after reviewing both Dr. Williams's qualifications and Mr. Whitfield's pattern of behavior, I have come to the conclusion that we made a serious error. That's why, effective yesterday, Horizon Aerospace has rescinded the offer to Bradley Thompson and extended a formal employment offer to Dr. Williams. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Curtis leaned forward, his face flushed with anger. Carter continued. Furthermore, our board has voted to remove Mr. Whitfield from our advisory committee, effective immediately, due to his attempt to interfere with our hiring practices in violation of our DEI commitments and potentially federal equal employment regulations. Judge Peterson, visibly taken aback by this testimony from someone in his own social circle, called for a 30-minute recess to consider the motions before him. In the courthouse hallway, Jasmine could hardly process what had just happened. Did you know she was going to do that? She asked Sarah. Elizabeth Carter contacted me last night, Sarah admitted. She wanted to make it right, but also to protect Horizon from potential SEC scrutiny over Curtis's interference with hiring practices. When court resumed, Judge Peterson looked deeply uncomfortable. The weight of evidence, combined with Carter's testimony, had made Curtis's actions difficult to dismiss or justify, even for a judge with personal connections to him. After reviewing the evidence presented today, Peterson announced, I am dismissing Mr. Whitfield's defamation claim against Dr. Williams. The video evidence clearly shows that his statements were accurately represented in the material that circulated online. Curtis stared in disbelief as Peterson continued. Regarding Dr. Williams's countersuit, I am denying the motion to dismiss. There appears to be sufficient evidence to proceed with claims of discrimination and tortious interference with economic opportunity. It was a stunning victory, one that even Sarah had not fully expected. As they gathered their materials to leave, Sarah whispered to Jasmine, he's setting himself up to rule against us later in the process, when there's less attention. But this gives us leverage for settlement negotiations. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, alerted to the high-profile hearing. Questions flew at Jasmine from all directions, but Sarah guided her past the media scrum to a waiting car. This is just round one, Sarah cautioned once they were safely inside. Curtis, Whitfield didn't become who he is by accepting defeat easily. He'll regroup and attack from another angle. As if confirming her prediction, Jasmine's phone rang with a call from an unlisted number. Sarah nodded for her to answer and put it on speaker. Dr. Williams, came a smooth male voice. This is Jeffrey Blackwood, representing Mr. Whitfield. In light of today's proceedings, my client would like to offer a settlement proposal. We're listening, Sarah replied. Mr. Whitfield is prepared to offer $1 million in exchange for a confidential settlement, including a non-disclosure agreement and the withdrawal of all claims. The figure was substantial, enough to provide financial security while Jasmine rebuilt her career. But the NDA meant the truth would remain buried, allowing Curtis to continue his pattern with future victims. "And if we decline?" Sarah asked, though she clearly knew the answer. "Then Mr. Whitfield is prepared to appeal today's ruling and pursue this matter through every available legal channel. The process could take years, and as you know, legal battles of this nature can be financially draining for individuals without corporate backing." The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. Curtis would use his vast resources to drag out the legal process, potentially bankrupting Jasmine even if she eventually won. After ending the call, Sarah turned to Jasmine. "It's your decision. The settlement would give you financial cushion and end this nightmare. But the NDA means you couldn't speak about what happened, and Curtis's behavior would remain hidden." Jasmine stared out the car window at the Seattle skyline, weighing her options. The settlement offered immediate relief, an end to the stress and uncertainty of the past week. But accepting it meant allowing Curtis to buy her silence, to preserve his ability to harm others who stood up to him in the future. "What would you do?" she asked Sarah. The attorney considered carefully before answering. "Professionally, I should advise you to take the money. These cases are unpredictable, and Curtis has nearly unlimited resources to fight us." She paused. "Personally, I'd tell him to go to hell. But it's not my career, reputation, or financial future at stake." As the car turned onto the highway, Jasmine made her decision. The path ahead would be difficult, but some principles were worth fighting for, even at tremendous personal cost. "I'm rejecting the settlement offer," Jasmine told Sarah, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her decision. "I won't let him buy my silence." Sarah nodded, a mix of professional concern and personal respect in her expression. "I figured you'd say that. Just be prepared. Curtis is going to escalate now that he knows you won't back down." "What's our next move?" Jasmine asked as they pulled up to her hotel. "We push forward with discovery for the countersuit. We depose Curtis, request all his communications about you, and build our case methodically." Sarah gathered her files. "Meanwhile, you should focus on your new position at Horizon. Having stable employment will strengthen your position." The following morning, Jasmine received an email confirming her start date at Horizon Aerospace. The offer was even better than the original, a higher salary, relocation assistance, and a signing bonus that would help replenish her depleted savings. Elizabeth Carter had personally added a note. "Looking forward to seeing what you'll accomplish here. Some battles are worth fighting." Just as things were looking up, Curtis launched his counterattack. By midday, Jasmine's phone was flooded with notifications about a press conference where Curtis announced he was filing a formal complaint with the American Bar Association against Sarah Johnson for unethical conduct and witness tampering. "He's claiming I coerced Trevor into testifying falsely," Sarah explained when Jasmine called in alarm. "It's baseless, but it forces me to defend myself, draining resources from your case. Classic tactics." That was just the beginning. Over the next 3 days, Curtis deployed a multi-pronged strategy to regain the upper hand. First, a business news website published a profile of Jasmine that questioned her academic credentials and suggested she had a history of playing the race card to advance professionally. The piece cited anonymous former colleagues but contained no verifiable evidence. Next, Curtis's PR team launched a coordinated campaign highlighting his charitable donations to urban education initiatives, complete with carefully staged photos of him mentoring young black students. The message was clear. Curtis Whitfield couldn't possibly be racist given his proven commitment to diversity. Then came the most damaging attack. A conservative legal foundation filed an amicus brief in support of Curtis's appeal, arguing that his comments on the plane were protected speech and that Jasmine's countersuit represented a dangerous precedent for criminalizing ordinary business decisions based on unproven allegations of discriminatory intent. The foundation's involvement elevated the case from a personal dispute to a potential precedent-setting legal battle, exactly the kind that attracted media attention and political involvement. As these events unfolded, the public narrative began shifting subtly but unmistakably. The initial outrage over Curtis's behavior was being replaced by a more nuanced discussion about rush to judgment and cancel culture. Media coverage increasingly presented the situation as a complex disagreement between two equal parties, rather than a clear case of discrimination and retaliation. Even within the aerospace industry, Curtis's influence was reasserting itself. Jasmine received a concerned call from Elizabeth Carter. "I'm still fully behind you," the CEO assured her. "But I should warn you that several board members are getting nervous. Curtis has been calling our major investors, suggesting that Horizon stock will suffer if we're perceived as anti-business. He's very skilled at applying pressure without making explicit threats." "What does that mean for my position?" Jasmine asked. "Your job is secure," Carter promised. "But our legal department is hesitant to provide additional evidence for your case against Curtis. They're concerned about potential shareholder lawsuits if we appear to be taking sides in a personal dispute." Another door closing. Another support system compromised by Curtis's far-reaching influence. Public interest in the case was also waning, as newer controversies emerged. Meredith Zhao from the Seattle Independent called with discouraging news. "My editor is pulling back on follow-up stories," she explained. "Our traffic analytics show diminishing reader engagement with the Whitfield coverage. People are moving on to fresher outrage." "So he wins by running out the clock?" Jasmine asked bitterly. "That's his playbook," Meredith confirmed. "Deny, attack, delay until the public loses interest. Then settle quietly with an NDA so no one ever learns the truth." As if to confirm this strategy, Jasmine received another settlement offer. This time for $2 million, but with even more restrictive terms. The NDA would prohibit her from ever discussing not only Curtis's behavior, but also the general topic of discrimination in the aerospace industry. Additionally, she would be required to issue a public statement expressing regret for any misunderstandings regarding the airplane incident. Sarah advised her to consider it carefully. "The legal landscape is shifting, Jasmine. Judge Peterson granted Curtis's motion to exclude some of our strongest evidence on technical grounds. He's setting up to rule against us while appearing to follow proper procedure." "So we appeal," Jasmine insisted. "Appeals take years," Sarah reminded her gently. "And they're expensive. My firm is committed to your case, but our resources aren't unlimited." That evening, Jasmine received a surprising email from Elizabeth Carter, labeled personal and confidential. "Jasmine, the Horizon board meeting today was difficult. While your position remains secure for now, I've been instructed to resolve the situation with Curtis. He's communicated through intermediaries that he would cease his campaign against Horizon if you drop your lawsuit and issue an apology. I'll respect whatever decision you make, but wanted you to know the pressure is intensifying from multiple directions. If there's anything I can do personally to support you, please let me know." Sabeth. Staring at her laptop screen, Jasmine felt the weight of institutional power aligning against her. Curtis wasn't just one man. He was an embodiment of a system designed to protect privilege and punish challenges to the established order. Her phone rang, a weekly check-in with Maya, who had moved back to Los Angeles after losing her flight attendant position. "Any luck with the new job applications?" Jasmine asked. Maya's sigh carried through the line. "3 airlines have turned me down so far. None will say it explicitly, but the message is clear. I'm too much of a liability." Standing up to Curtis. "Whitfield has apparently made me not a team player." The injustice burned in Jasmine's chest. Maya had lost a career she loved simply for doing the right thing, while Curtis continued to thrive despite his documented pattern of discrimination. "I'm sorry, Maya. This isn't fair." "Life rarely is," Maya replied philosophically. "But I've been thinking, this isn't just about getting our jobs back or making Curtis pay. It's about changing the system that gives people like him so much power to begin with." Later that night, unable to sleep, Jasmine found herself reviewing Curtis's company website. Meridian Capital had a glossy page touting their commitment to diversity and inclusion, complete with carefully crafted statements about creating opportunity for all. Another section highlighted Curtis's philanthropic work and his company's pursuit of government contracts. including a pending $350 million Defense Department deal for aerospace components. Something clicked in Jasmine's mind. Government contracts, at that level, required compliance with federal equal employment opportunity regulations. Companies had to demonstrate their commitment to non-discrimination and diversity. She shot an email to Sarah. Curtis's company is bidding on a major government contract. Could his documented discrimination affect their eligibility? Sarah's response came first thing in the morning. You're brilliant. Federal contractors are held to strict EEO standards. Evidence of discrimination by a CEO could absolutely jeopardize their qualification. This gives us leverage he might not have considered. For the first time in weeks, Jasmine felt a shift in momentum. Curtis had been so focused on burying the incident through legal maneuvers and PR campaigns that he might have overlooked this vulnerability. Sarah immediately filed a formal complaint with the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, including evidence of Curtis's discriminatory statements and retaliatory actions. Simultaneously, she contacted journalists who covered government contracting, ensuring the complaint would receive public attention. Curtis's reaction was swift and furious. Within hours of the story breaking, he had his attorneys file an emergency motion accusing Jasmine of malicious interference with business relations and seeking a gag order to prevent her from defaming his company to federal agencies. Judge Peterson expedited a hearing on the motion, but even he seemed unsure about how to proceed. Restricting Jasmine's right to file complaints with federal regulators would be difficult to justify, even for a judge sympathetic to Curtis. He's panicking, Sarah observed as they prepared for the hearing. The government contract angle hit a nerve. Meridian Capital can survive public relations problems, but losing federal contract eligibility would cost them hundreds of millions. As they entered the courthouse for what would be a pivotal hearing, Jasmine spotted Trevor waiting outside. The teenager looked exhausted, but determined. My dad is on the warpath, he warned them. I've never seen him this angry. He's calling in every favor, threatening everyone who doesn't fall in line. Be careful. The hearing began with Curtis's attorneys claiming Jasmine was engaged in a vindictive campaign to damage Meridian Capital's business prospects. They demanded the court prohibit her from making further complaints to government agencies until after the defamation appeal was resolved. Sarah countered forcefully, Your Honor, the right to petition government agencies is constitutionally protected. Mr. Whitfield is essentially asking this court to suspend Ms. Williams's First Amendment rights to shield his company from legitimate regulatory scrutiny. Even Judge Peterson seemed reluctant to grant such an overreaching request. Counsel, I'm not convinced the court has authority to restrict Ms. Williams' access to federal agencies. Perhaps we should focus on resolving the underlying dispute. It was the first time Peterson had shown any hesitation in ruling favorably. For Curtis, a telling sign that the government contract angle had changed the dynamics of the case. As the hearing concluded without the gag order Curtis had sought, Jasmine felt cautiously optimistic. They had finally found a pressure point that even Curtis's money and connections couldn't easily neutralize. But Curtis Whitfield was not a man who accepted defeat gracefully. As they left the courthouse, Sarah received an urgent call from her office. Someone just delivered documents to our firm, she told Jasmine, her expression grave. Internal communications from Horizon Aerospace suggesting Elizabeth Carter had decided not to hire you before the plane incident ever happened. If authentic, they contradict her testimony and undermine our case. That's impossible, Jasmine protested. Elizabeth Carter personally emailed me before the flight. Curtis is either forging evidence or pressuring someone at Horizon to provide falsified documents, Sarah agreed. But it creates another battle we have to fight, more resources we have to divert. The message was clear. Curtis would go to any length, ethical or not, to win this war of attrition. That night, Jasmine returned to her new apartment, a modest one-bedroom she'd rented with her Horizon signing bonus, and found the door ajar. Heart pounding, she backed away and called the police. Nothing appeared to be stolen, but the invasion of her private space left Jasmine deeply shaken. The responding officers suggested it was likely a random break-in, but she knew better. This was another message from Curtis. "You are not safe. I can reach you anywhere." As she changed the locks and installed a security system, Jasmine wondered how much more she could endure. The legal battle was draining her emotionally and financially. Curtis's campaign against her had affected her family, her colleagues, and now threatened her physical safety. The temptation to accept his settlement offer, to end this nightmare with financial security if not justice, grew stronger by the day. Maybe Maya was right. Perhaps the real victory wasn't in defeating Curtis personally, but in contributing to gradual systemic change. As she weighed these thoughts, a breaking news alert appeared on her phone. Meridian Capital's $350 million defense contract placed under review following discrimination allegations against CEO. Curtis had finally encountered an obstacle his wealth and connections couldn't immediately overcome. Federal contracting regulations operated under different rules than civil courts, with stricter standards and less vulnerability to personal influence. For the first time since their confrontation on the plane, Jasmine felt the balance of power shift. Curtis Whitfield might not be invincible after all. The following morning, Jasmine's phone rang with a call from Sarah. "Turn on Channel 7 News right now," the attorney instructed without preamble. Jasmine fumbled for her remote and switched on the television to find Curtis Whitfield holding an impromptu press conference outside Meridian Capital headquarters. Gone was the composed, confident executive. In his place stood a man visibly struggling to maintain his composure. "These baseless allegations have forced me to take action to protect the thousands of employees who depend on Meridian Capital's continued success," Curtis declared, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. "Therefore, I am temporarily stepping aside as CEO while this matter is resolved." The camera panned to show the Meridian Capital board chairman standing nearby, his expression carefully neutral. "The board has appointed Chief Operating Officer Vanessa Rodriguez as interim CEO effective immediately. We have full confidence in Ms. Rodriguez's leadership during this transitional period." Jasmine watched in disbelief. Curtis Whitfield, forced to relinquish control of the company he had built over 3 decades, all because she had refused to give up her seat on an airplane. "Is this real?" she asked Sarah when the segment ended. "Or just a PR move?" "Bit of both," Sarah replied. "The federal contract review forced the board's hand. They can't risk hundreds of millions in government business over one man's ego, no matter how powerful he is. But make no mistake, Curtis will still be pulling strings, behind the scenes. Even so, this development represented the first significant consequence Curtis had faced for his behavior. The seemingly untouchable executive had been publicly humbled, his reputation damaged in ways money couldn't easily repair. Later that day, Jasmine received an unexpected email from Sarah with the subject line, "Urgent, evidence obtained." Attached were dozens of internal documents from Meridian Capital, including emails where Curtis explicitly instructed human resources staff to maintain a traditional corporate culture by finding reasons to reject minority candidates for senior positions. "Where did these come from?" Jasmine asked when she called Sarah. "Anonymous source," Sarah replied carefully. "They were delivered to a journalist at the Washington Post who shared them with us given our pending case. The Post is running a major investigative piece tomorrow." Jasmine immediately suspected Trevor might be the source, but Sarah's cautious tone suggested it was better not to speculate on record. Regardless of their origin, the documents provided devastating evidence of systematic discrimination throughout Curtis's business empire, not just isolated incidents but a pattern of deliberate exclusion spanning years. When the Washington Post published its investigation the following morning, the impact was immediate and severe. Meridian Capital's stock dropped 12% in the first hour of trading. Curtis's charitable foundation saw 3 board members resign, citing concerns about leadership values. Social media erupted with calls for boycotts of companies associated with Meridian Capital's investment portfolio. The tide was turning with startling speed. After weeks of Curtis seemingly controlling every aspect of the narrative, the truth was breaking through, creating consequences his money and connections couldn't easily neutralize. Jasmine's phone rang with a call from Elizabeth Carter. "I just got word that the Horizon board has unanimously voted to cooperate fully with your case against Curtis," the CEO informed her. "Those falsified documents he tried to use? Our internal investigation traced them to a junior HR staffer who admitted Curtis offered to pay off his student loans in exchange for fabricating evidence. "That's huge," Jasmine said, almost unable to believe this reversal of fortune. "It gets better," Carter continued. "Several other aerospace executives have contacted me privately. They've experienced similar pressure tactics from Curtis over the years, but were too afraid to speak out. Now they're coming forward. The dam is breaking." By evening, media coverage had shifted dramatically. Curtis was no longer portrayed as a respected businessman facing cancel culture, but as a powerful figure whose history of discrimination and intimidation was finally catching up with him. Interview requests poured in for Jasmine, with journalists eager to hear her perspective on the man who had tried to destroy her career. Sarah advised caution. "We're in a stronger position, but the legal battle isn't over. Curtis still has considerable resources and influence. Don't say anything that could compromise our case." The attorney's warning proved prescient. Just as momentum seemed to be shifting decisively in Jasmine's favor, Curtis deployed his next countermeasure. Jasmine was preparing for her second week at Horizon Aerospace when she received an email from an unfamiliar address. The message contained only a link to a private YouTube video. Against her better judgment, she clicked. The video showed Curtis sitting in what appeared to be his home office, looking directly into the camera. "Dr. Williams," he began, his tone surprisingly conciliatory. "I think it's time we spoke directly, without lawyers or media spin." He continued, "This situation has escalated beyond what either of us likely anticipated. Lives have been disrupted, careers affected, and neither of us is closer to resolution." His expression shifted to one of apparent sincerity. "I'm prepared to offer you $10 million to end this matter quietly. No NDA, no public statement, just a clean break, allowing both of us to move forward with our lives." The figure was staggering, enough to secure Jasmine's financial future permanently. And the absence of an NDA requirement addressed her primary objection to previous offers. "All I ask," Curtis concluded, "is that you consider what truly matters to you. Is it justice or vengeance, resolution or continued conflict? The choice is yours." The video ended with instructions for responding through a secure channel, bypassing both their legal teams. Jasmine sat motionless, absorbing the implications of this unexpected offer. $10 million without silencing her. It seemed too good to be true. And anything that seemed too good to be true when dealing with Curtis Whitfield probably was. She forwarded the video to Sarah, who responded immediately. "Do not reply. This is almost certainly a trap. We don't know what unstated conditions might be attached, and any direct communication outside legal channels could compromise our case." The following day, Curtis's new strategy became clear. Having failed to bribe Jasmine directly, he announced a diversity and inclusion initiative at Meridian Capital, pledging $50 million to support minority students pursuing careers in business and technology. He publicly invited Jasmine to serve on the advisory board as a voice for change. It was a masterful move that placed Jasmine in an impossible position. Refusing the role would make her appear vindictive and uninterested in actual progress. Accepting would tie her to Curtis's rehabilitation campaign and undermine her legal claims about his discriminatory behavior. "He's trying to co-opt your moral authority," Sarah explained. "If he can get you to engage with his initiative, it neutralizes your criticism and lets him present himself as reformed." Before Jasmine could decide how to respond, Meredith Zhao published another expose in the Seattle Independent, revealing that Curtis's diversity initiative was being funded by redirecting money already allocated to other charitable causes, not new funding as he had implied. The revelation damaged Curtis's rehabilitation efforts, but also reinforced the power dynamics at play. Even as he faced unprecedented scrutiny, Curtis controlled vast resources that allowed him to shape narratives and create elaborate facades. Jasmine's attempt to hold him accountable had created cracks in his armor, but had yet to penetrate to the core of his power and privilege. As she pondered her next move, Trevor Whitfield made a decision that would irrevocably alter the battle's trajectory. In a lengthy social media post, he publicly severed ties with his father, sharing screenshots of threatening text messages Curtis had sent him after his court testimony. "I can no longer maintain any relationship with someone who uses their power to hurt others and believes their wealth places them above accountability," Trevor wrote. "I would rather build my life on principles of equality and justice than inherit the corrupt legacy my father has established." The post went viral instantly, with Trevor's raw honesty resonating across generational and political lines. Curtis's carefully crafted image as a concerned father, heartbroken by his son's manipulation by outside forces, collapsed entirely. Sensing momentum, Sarah accelerated their legal strategy. She filed motions to compel testimony from former Meridian Capital employees who had signed NDAs regarding workplace discrimination. She also requested Judge Peterson recuse himself due to his personal and financial connections to Curtis, a motion that would have been futile weeks earlier, but now had potential to succeed given the shifting public perception. Curtis's legal team responded with increasingly desperate maneuvers. They filed motion after motion seeking delays, arguing procedural technicalities, and attempting to limit the scope of discovery. Their strategy was transparent: drag out the process as long as possible in hopes that public interest would eventually fade. What they hadn't counted on was Jasmine's remarkable resilience. Despite everything Curtis had thrown at her, professional blacklisting, media manipulation, legal harassment, even thinly veiled threats, she remained steadfast in her pursuit of accountability. Her determination inspired others. Current and former employees at Curtis's companies began coming forward with their own stories of discrimination and retaliation. Journalists investigated his business practices more aggressively. Even some of Curtis's longtime associates began distancing themselves, sensing that his previously untouchable status was eroding. As these developments unfolded, Jasmine received unexpected validation from an unlikely source. The aerospace industry's most prestigious journal published a peer review of her research on composite materials, describing it as groundbreaking work that could revolutionize aircraft manufacturing. The recognition confirmed what she had always known. Her value lay in her intellect and expertise, not in her willingness to accept mistreatment. 3 months after the confrontation on Flight 2267, the battle reached its climax in an unlikely setting. Jasmine was giving a presentation to Horizon's engineering team when she received an urgent text from Sarah. "Curtis just confronted me outside the courthouse. Witnesses present. Call ASAP." When she called during her lunch break, Sarah explained, "He ambushed me in the parking garage, demanding I convince you to drop the case. When I refused, he grabbed my arm and said, and I quote, 'You don't understand who you're dealing with.'" 2 court officers witnessed the entire incident. "Are you okay?" Jasmine asked, concerned for her attorney's safety. "I'm fine," Sarah assured her. "But Curtis isn't. He's been arrested for assault and intimidating an officer of the court. His bail hearing is in 2 hours." The news of Curtis Whitfield's arrest spread through media outlets with lightning speed. Security camera footage from the parking garage showed him lunging at Sarah, his face contorted with rage, a far cry from the composed executive America had seen on television for decades. Released on bail but ordered to surrender his passport, Curtis emerged from the courthouse to find a media frenzy awaiting him. For the first time, he appeared genuinely shaken, his carefully maintained facade crumbling under the weight of consequences he couldn't control. That evening, Jasmine received a call from Jeffrey Blackwood, Curtis's settlement attorney. "Dr. Williams," he began, his tone distinctly less confident than in previous conversations. "In light of recent developments, my client is prepared to discuss a comprehensive resolution of all outstanding matters." "I'm listening," Jasmine replied, signaling to Sarah, who was with her, to record the call. "Mr. Whitfield will pay $20 million in damages, make a public apology acknowledging his inappropriate behavior, and step down permanently as CEO of Meridian Capital," Blackwood stated. "In exchange, you would drop all current legal proceedings." "And the NDA requirement?" Jasmine asked. "No non-disclosure agreement," Blackwood confirmed. "Mr. Whitfield recognizes that attempting to silence you has backfired. He prefers to resolve this matter and move forward." After ending the call, Jasmine turned to Sarah. "What do you think?" "It's a complete capitulation," Sarah said, looking slightly stunned. "Everything we asked for and more. The arrest must have finally made him realize he can't intimidate his way out of this." The settlement offer represented total victory in practical terms. The financial compensation was extraordinary. Curtis would publicly admit wrongdoing, and he would lose control of his company. Jasmine would be free to speak about her experience, potentially helping others facing similar situations. Yet, something felt incomplete. Jasmine had never wanted Curtis's money or even his humiliation. She had simply wanted accountability, for him to face genuine consequences for his actions, rather than buying his way out of trouble as he had presumably done many times before. "If I accept, does he avoid criminal charges for what he did to you?" she asked Sarah. "No," Sarah clarified. "The assault and witness intimidation charges are separate legal matters. The prosecutor could still pursue those regardless of our civil settlement." "Then I think we have a deal," Jasmine decided. "But with one addition. I want a portion of the settlement directed toward establishing a legal defense fund for others facing workplace discrimination and retaliation. People who don't have the resources or platform I've had." Sarah smiled. "I'll make it happen." 3 days later, the deal was finalized. Curtis Whitfield, once one of America's most powerful executives, issued a public apology acknowledging his inexcusable behavior toward Jasmine Williams and his subsequent attempts to damage her career. He announced his permanent resignation as CEO of Meridian Capital and pledged to undergo extensive education on diversity and inclusion. Financial markets reacted with surprising positivity to his departure. Meridian Capital's stock actually rose on the news, suggesting investors had come to see Curtis as a liability rather than an asset, the ultimate repudiation for a man who had built his identity around business success. As the media firestorm gradually subsided, Jasmine found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple refusal to give up her seat. A moment that might have remained private had become a public reckoning about power, privilege, and the courage required to challenge entrenched systems of inequality. The victory hadn't come without costs. Maya was still rebuilding her career. Trevor was estranged from his father. Jasmine herself had endured months of stress, uncertainty, and fear. But they had accomplished something that many had thought impossible. They had held a seemingly untouchable man accountable for his actions. As she prepared for her upcoming presentation at an international aerospace conference, an opportunity that would have been unthinkable months earlier, Jasmine received one final email from Elizabeth Carter. "The board voted unanimously to promote you to Director of Advanced Materials Research. Your work has been exemplary, but more importantly, your courage in standing up to Curtis Whitfield has inspired the entire company. Sometimes the most important engineering isn't in materials, but in the systems that govern our society. You've helped redesign those systems for the better." 6 months after the confrontation on Flight 2267, Jasmine Williams stood at a podium in the Grand Ballroom of the Hyatt Regency Seattle. Before her sat hundreds of aerospace professionals gathered for the industry's most prestigious annual conference. Her presentation on carbon nanotube-reinforced composites had been selected as the keynote address, a remarkable honor for someone so early in her career. "Innovation often requires us to challenge conventional wisdom," she began, her voice steady and confident, "to question assumptions about what's possible and what isn't." As she guided the audience through her groundbreaking research, Jasmine couldn't help reflecting on how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been fighting for her professional survival against a system designed to protect the powerful. Today, she stood as a respected industry leader, her work recognized on its merits rather than dismissed because of her race or gender. The settlement with Curtis Whitfield had been finalized weeks earlier, concluding a legal battle that had captured national attention. The terms were even more favorable than initially negotiated: $20 million in damages, a public apology acknowledging his discriminatory behavior, and his permanent removal as CEO of Meridian Capital. Most importantly to Jasmine, $5 million from the settlement had been allocated to establish the Flight 2267 Foundation, providing legal support for individuals facing workplace discrimination who lacked the resources to fight back effectively. As she concluded her presentation to enthusiastic applause, Jasmine spotted a familiar face in the audience, Maya Chen, smiling proudly from the third row. After losing her flight attendant position, Maya had successfully sued National Airways for wrongful termination with Sarah Johnson's help. The airline had settled quietly, reinstating Maya with back pay and a promotion to senior cabin crew trainer. Their connection had evolved from a chance encounter into a genuine friendship forged in the crucible of standing against injustice. They met regularly for coffee, supporting each other through the ongoing challenges of navigating professional spaces as women of color. Outside the conference hall, Seattle was experiencing one of its rare perfect summer days, clear blue skies, and comfortable temperatures that showcased the city's stunning natural beauty. Jasmine and Maya found a quiet spot by Elliott Bay to catch up. "I still can't believe how everything turned out," Maya said, watching ferries crisscross the Sound. "When I stood up to Curtis on that plane, I was just doing my job. I never imagined it would lead to all of this." That's how change happens sometimes, Jasmine reflected. Not through grand plans, but through small moments of courage that cascade into something larger. Their conversation was interrupted by a notification on Jasmine's phone, breaking news that Curtis Whitfield had pleaded guilty to witness intimidation charges stemming from his courthouse confrontation with Sarah. The plea deal included community service and mandatory sensitivity training, but no jail time. "Still getting special treatment," Maya observed with a hint of bitterness. "True," Jasmine acknowledged, "but he's facing consequences he can't buy his way out of. His reputation is permanently damaged. The business world he dominated has moved on without him. That's something he can't fix with money or connections." The criminal plea represented the final chapter in Curtis Whitfield's public downfall. The man who had once seemed untouchable had been revealed as a bully whose power depended on others' fear and silence. When Jasmine and then others had refused to be silenced, that power had crumbled with surprising speed. Later that evening, Jasmine received an unexpected email from Trevor Whitfield, who had largely disappeared from public view after his decisive break with his father. "Dr. Williams, I wanted to let you know that I've established a scholarship for minority students pursuing aerospace engineering degrees. It's my way of trying to create something positive from this whole experience. I've learned so much about courage and integrity by watching how you handled everything my father threw at you. Thank you for showing me there's another way to live. Trevor." Attached was a press release announcing the Horizon Futures Scholarship, which would provide full tuition and mentorship for 5 students annually. Jasmine was moved to tears by this tangible legacy of their shared ordeal. A young man choosing a different path than the one his father had laid out for him. During her remaining days in Seattle, Jasmine's schedule was packed with meetings as companies throughout the industry sought her expertise. The same doors that had been slammed in her face 6 months earlier now opened wide, with executives eager to associate themselves with both her technical brilliance and her principled stand against discrimination. Elizabeth Carter had been particularly supportive, creating a division at Horizon specifically focused on implementing Jasmine's research. Under Carter's mentorship, Jasmine was developing the leadership skills to complement her technical expertise, preparing for a future where she might shape the industry's direction beyond materials science. On her final evening before returning to her now permanent position in Atlanta, Jasmine found herself boarding a flight, her first since the infamous Flight 2267. As she settled into her business class seat, she felt a momentary tension, memories of that confrontation still fresh despite the months that had passed. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Williams," came a familiar voice. "Can I get you anything before takeoff?" Jasmine looked up in surprise to find Maya standing beside her, immaculate in her senior cabin crew uniform. "Maya, what are you doing here? I thought you were based in Los Angeles now." Maya smiled. "I requested this flight when I saw your name on the manifest. Thought you might appreciate a friendly face for your first time back in the air." The simple kindness brought unexpected tears to Jasmine's eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." As the plane climbed into the evening sky, Jasmine reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun, with a simple refusal to give up her seat. That moment had cascaded into consequences none of them could have predicted. Careers disrupted and rebuilt, lives interconnected, and perhaps most importantly, a small but significant shift in what powerful people could expect to get away with. The changes went beyond Curtis Whitfield's individual downfall. Multiple aerospace companies had revised their anti-discrimination policies in the wake of the publicized case. The industry journal that had featured Jasmine's research had commissioned a special issue on diversity in aerospace engineering. National Airways had implemented mandatory training for all staff on handling discrimination incidents. These systemic changes, while incremental, represented the most meaningful victory. Curtis Whitfield's behavior hadn't been an anomaly, but a symptom of entrenched power structures that permitted certain people to act with impunity. By standing her ground, Jasmine had helped expose those structures and initiate the long, difficult process of dismantling them. As the flight attendants prepared the cabin for service, Jasmine opened her laptop to review notes for her first day back at Horizon's Atlanta headquarters. Elizabeth Carter had restructured the engineering department to place Jasmine in charge of a diverse team working to implement her composite materials innovations across multiple aircraft designs. Maya paused beside her seat during the beverage service. "First time I've enjoyed serving business class in a long time," she said with a wink. "Feels like we've come full circle." Indeed they had, from that moment of confrontation that might have remained a private indignity to a public reckoning that had changed both their lives and many others. The costs had been high, but so had the rewards. Jasmine remembered something her grandfather, the Tuskegee Airman, had told her when she faced discrimination in college. Progress isn't about waiting for someone to give you what's rightfully yours. It's about having the courage to claim it, even when the whole world tells you that you don't belong. On Flight 2267, she had claimed her rightful seat. In the months that followed, she had claimed her rightful place in her profession and in a society that had too often relegated people who looked like her to the margins. As the plane cruised smoothly through the night sky toward Atlanta, Jasmine Williams sat exactly where she belonged. Not because anyone had granted her permission, but because she had refused to accept anything less. The true victory wasn't in Curtis Whitfield's downfall, or even in the substantial settlement. It was in the subtle but significant recalibration of power, a demonstration that courage, persistence, and truth could sometimes prevail against seemingly insurmountable odds. Not always, not easily, but sometimes. And those sometimes were worth fighting for. Justice, Jasmine had learned, wasn't an endpoint, but a continuing journey. One taken step by step, seat by seat, voice by voice. The next time someone faced discrimination in the countless small moments that made up systemic inequality, perhaps they would remember her story and find the courage to say, "This seat is mine. I belong here, and I will not move." Jasmine Williams's journey teaches us that standing up against discrimination, even in seemingly small moments, can create powerful ripples of change. Her refusal to surrender a seat that was rightfully hers catalyzed a transformation that extended far beyond that single confrontation. First, we learn that systems protecting privilege rely on silence and compliance. When Jasmine refused to be silenced, despite threats to her career, reputation, and safety, the facade of Curtis's power began to crack. It took courage to reject settlement offers that would have secured her financial future, but buried the truth. Second, this story illustrates how allies emerge in unexpected places. Maya risked her career to stand up for what was right. Trevor chose integrity over family loyalty. Elizabeth Carter ultimately prioritized merit over powerful connections. These alliances were crucial in confronting systemic discrimination that no individual could dismantle alone. Third, we witness the importance of strategic persistence. Curtis had resources to exhaust opponents through prolonged legal battles, media manipulation, and economic pressure. Jasmine's victory required not just courage, but calculated approaches that targeted vulnerabilities even wealth couldn't shield, like federal contract requirements and criminal accountability. Perhaps most importantly, we see that progress isn't about waiting for permission to claim what's rightfully yours. It requires the determination to persist when every institutional force pushes against you. The victory wasn't simply in Curtis's downfall or the financial settlement, but in demonstrating that systems protecting discrimination can be challenged successfully. True justice isn't an endpoint, but an ongoing journey taken seat by seat, voice by voice, challenging inequity in both dramatic confrontations and everyday moments of courage. Have you ever witnessed discrimination but hesitated to speak up? What would you have done in Jasmine's position? Stand your ground despite the consequences, or avoid the conflict? Let us know in the comments below. If Jasmine's courage in the face of overwhelming odds inspired you, please hit that like button and share this story to remind others that standing up for what's right matters, even when it's difficult. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories of individuals who refused to accept injustice and created meaningful change. Your support helps us continue bringing these important narratives to light. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply refusing to move when someone tells you that you don't belong. Stay strong, stand firm, and never underestimate the difference one person's courage can make.